everyone for coming. I'll be the facilitator today, and Ellie will be our note taker. We just need to broaden the circle a little bit to make space for 1.5 chairs. And so probably these, the people I'm talking to the back of your head would be easiest to move back to make space. Thank you. I am. And for those of you who don't know, the sign-in is going around, and here it is. It's a Scott. Is this your Scott?
I think it goes with the
So you are in the correct space if you would like to be discussing food sector work. Again, my name is Joanna, and we could just go, well, actually, we have a little introduction plan, and while this is going around, then we will. So, we would like to be in food and maybe not just think about food and assets, but how we consume food and how we share food, and the way that food fits into all of life, right? How we dance with food. Even no food. But anyway, in the vein of this and community building that is often done through food, we're going to start off with an exercise. So if we can get with someone that you don't know, so we'll be in partners. You can stand up, sit down, switch seats, and then go back to your seats if you want. And share a story about your profoundest moment with food, a food moment that was medicine to you. And does anybody have any questions about that?
Don't be shy.
No? Great. So pick someone you don't know, find out their name, and find their story, and then we'll introduce each other based on that story.
Why are you staying here?
Well, thank you so much for sharing, being authentic, and starting the narrative of food with your own personal stories. If we can start, okay, we'll start with Scott since he's not eating his apple. And would you guys like to introduce each other, tell what organization you're from, just a little short, brief bit about the stories that you shared about.
We're both with Austin Public Health. She's with the WIC unit, which does a great job of supporting our community with early nutrition. We were talking
Well, this is Scott. He's also with Austin Public Health. And what's the exact unit with them? Planning and evaluation. So they have a bunch of different initiatives that are throughout the city that they work on.
This is Andrea Abel, and she's with Farm Share. We do a lot of great programming, also around mobile markets and farm stand.
And this is Angela Henry, and she's with the Capital Area Food Bank, and she is a registered dietitian, and she works on nutrition and all the programs that they have there. They're actually split up into different segments, and she does all the cooking classes and the garden.
Awesome. This is Monica. She's with Community Care. She does marketing and public relations. She is a UT School of Public Health alumna as well. And we talked a lot about tomorrow.
And this is Christine. Christine's at UT School of Public Health. We talked a lot about just the meaning of really good food and healthy food and how that impacts our life. She shared with me how food's become so important to her because of her travels throughout just different countries around the world, and how it's given her an appreciation for just good quality food, and it's important for her and her kids to have access to good food.
This is Tanya from Caritas, and we talked a lot about comfort food and those things we remember from childhood that we still like now, that make us feel better.
Okay. And this is Nile from Common Threads, and we also kind of discussed about kind of introducing new foods and learning how to cook them and enjoy them, and things that we haven't always grown up with, but introducing new things to kids and adults and things like that. So, yeah.
Hi. My name is Roy. I met Miss Taylor, and we didn't really talk. I didn't really get a chance to ask her what her background was, but we talked about, her eating food in the car and not eating properly, but because of her work and everything, she's between here and Georgetown relocation. Traffic's pretty heavy, so I can see why she's in the car a lot. But anyway, I'm Roy, and I'm with Caritas, and this is a program called My Home, and I live there in their apartments. I'm no longer homeless, which is a big accomplishment for me. So I'm just glad to be a part of this, and maybe I can pitch in something in my community out on
Okay, this is Stephanie Helfman. She's the manager of chronic disease prevention with Austin Public Health. And we talked about one of her most fond memories is that she planted her own garden and that her children went out and picked tomatoes. So that was a profound moment for her.
And I got the pleasure of meeting Duran from Caritas, and he talked about how food can be surprising sometimes. One time he was eating some crispy appetizers and dipping them in a sauce, only to find out it was calamari.
And that was the end of the meal after that.
I'm Jill Smith. I'm with Austin Public Health, and I was talking to Joanna, our facilitator, and she was talking about using food kind of literally as medicine, and kind of using like garlic and onions and things like that that kind of have medicinal properties.
And even though Jill basically introduced herself, she was talking about her learning about other cultures, and even when it's not authentic, having the experience of change. Is that accurate, Jill?
Yeah, just learning about other cultures and food.
Chance to meet Belma, Grandma Wisdom. She has been vice president of the St. John's Neighborhood Association and a resident for 70 years in St. John's neighborhood. Talked about the love for her grandmother's peach trees and what that was like as a kid to go outside and eat from the plums and peaches.
And this is Max, and he's with Urban Roots, and he talked about how great it was for him to share food with the family and see them embracing the right kinds of food and how that kind of changed some things about him.
This is Regina with People's Community Clinic, and we didn't talk at all about our job, we just talked about food over here. But Regina had a profound experience when she was in Japan while one of her daughters was studying there, and how everything in Japan was completely different, from the toilets to the food, but yet it was still all the same. So kind of the idea that our traditions and our habits and things like that, we all share those, but they manifest differently through maybe different foods we eat, but it's all still eerily similar.
She's with the Sustainable Food Center. She talked about a really wonderful small moment where she and her mom were together at the farmer's market in Chicago, and she had fresh pressed cider, apple juice, and things like that. And And it was such a wonderful freshness that she hadn't experienced before. And it kind of was just a moment that stands out for her. It's like this perfect opportunity. I think it probably had to do with it.
I was a teenager.
Yes, and this is I've enjoyed Ivan is with Central Health, and he talked about family, and that his family's traditions all are around being together in the kitchen. What I loved was he talked about his mom always including the kids in cooking and chopping and helping and learning the creation of food, and to the pleasure and enjoying it that you contributed to something. And then you can spend the whole day. We have breakfast, we keep talking, coffee, and the time that we got, it was lunchtime, and it's like the time that they're together, we're all just in the kitchen around.
This is Susan for Jesus Center. She shared a story of raising her own chickens and getting other little kids to have actually having that moment of eating bringing more women's community. And just how
This is Maddie Shaw. She spends her time as a postdoc at UT Austin, and as we're looking at Frio County on rural health of Texas. And she shared the story of the moment when she is a new mom of a young son, a few weeks old, and just realizing that what she puts into her body has this whole new meaning that's extended.
Did you say 3 weeks?
Sorry, I said
Can I ask too, I know we'll probably have to say this a lot, it's a little bit hard to hear across the circle, so if you don't mind speaking up more than it's comfortable a little bit, we might be able to better hear. Did you hear that? Okay, cool.
I'm Rita Taylor. I work for Mission Capital in Research and Evaluation, and I was able to chat with Roy. And we also talked about probably foods that aren't as healthy for us for lots of reasons. But one that we talked about things we kind of miss and one was ice cream. We need as much of that.
I'm Allison Jewman, and this is Marielle from the city of Boston. She's a community engagement manager. And she talked about, very good storyteller, talked about like cooking in her kitchen and how would make all of her kids gather around her and trying to taste bits of the food. And even though she was like, oh, go away, it's actually a really great family moment for her got to be together in the kitchen together.
And this is Alison Dubin, and she's with Foundation Communities, and she's in charge of implementing healthy pantries throughout the properties. And we talk about access to fresh food and vegetables and how creates power and empower families to cook their meals. And before that, she was volunteer at the food banks, and so this is not only the mission, it's very personal for her.
Thank you everyone for sharing. Did anyone have any questions? Amanda shares, great. So I just want to remind everyone why we're here, that the purpose of this meeting, even though Carmen stated it so eloquently and thoroughly, was that we're here to understand the Runberg and St. John's community's priorities and the assets that we have here as nonprofits, organizations, individuals, and how we can work together with funding, but then also manpower and basically all the assets that we have as part of the projects that we're currently working on.
All right, can you look at the person next to you?
So, we would like to start with imagining a healthy community. So we've shared some stories that have provided. I'm sorry, we're going to have to be going through this all day. There might be probably some bleed of sound from the other room and over here. And if anybody wants to move in, me project more? Oh, wow. Okay. Usually that's not a problem for me. So we're going to continue to envision a healthy community with regard to food. maybe based on some of the stories that we've shared, what does that look like in the Runberg St. John's community? Does that look different? Does it look the same? So that's what we're here to discuss. So what do you believe are the 2 to 3 most important characteristics of a healthy community?
That's just your sign to know that share the air.
Access to food, to healthy food.
Before you leave, there is a sign-in sheet on the table. If you have to leave early, please make sure you sign in so we can follow what's going to be about this conversation.
And Elliot's taking notes. I'll take some notes too. But please feel free to make eye contact, be the next person to share. Don't be shy.
Say community voice.
Community with respect to food, or kind of?
Well, right now we're just looking at a healthy community and maybe how food fits in. And I mean, if you think the number one thing is people having access to food, then share that. But if you think there are other things, we are here to look at food. But let's just talk about it in general right now.
I'd say social gatherings, especially with senior citizens, being able to have a conversation around the table and enjoy the meal.
Did you drive? Did you bike to school?
Yeah, I agree, gathering and harmony and joy.
Harmony and joy.
Yeah.
Where's social support? And they used to go out.
A strong social support network.
Social
We used
support.
to take cruises or just ride around your neighborhood.
Let's say equity in terms of economic equity. We always think about equity just across the
Right now,
board.
you're probably focused
But
on one thing where you just.
I want to emphasize just the economic equity, and that sometimes leads to lack of access to anything.
I would want to see a community that was vigorous and not disabled by chronic disease, where people were able to be outside and moving and well-nourished but not overnourished.
I would like to see more information in the Runberg area of facilities that have food pantries. I notice there's a lot of schools and children in that Runberg area, a lot of traffic. But pantries is kind of very important, I think, in the community, especially with vegetables, fresh. I don't know of any pantries in that area. Is there churches in the Runberg area that has, I know in the St. John's area that have pantries.
Yeah, there are a handful of food pantries that partner with the Central Texas Food Bank, and we also offer a mobile food pantry at St. John's for the city center that provides fresh produce as well as staple items on a monthly basis.
Because I know Caritas opened up a pantry, a new one on the north side, but I didn't know of any others.
I think we need better communication. It's sometimes there is food, but it doesn't get in the community so that people know that there's food there when it's there and this type of thing. And then working with cultural differences. Why do people eat what? And that some people are real eating food that's filling, but not necessarily healthy or good for them. So then how do you change those attitudes? How do you change those, that kind of information in that? Because you can have all the food in the world. I didn't eat no vegetables, when I was a little girl. I ate syrup and bread, and if you didn't have that, when I fell on the table and cried every day. And so just having the food is not enough. You have to, fix it in such a way that kids like it, or that access is part of it, but education is a whole bunch.
So can I tag on to that? So she mentioned communication and education, and so that just, to me, that community health workers. So a solid network of community health workers embedded throughout the neighborhood that can provide the communication and the education around any resources that are available, and that understand the cultures of the neighborhood and empower people.
I think transportation is really key. so that people can get places to buy food, and also healthcare and other basic needs, and infrastructure for walking and things like that. Both to get places to food, but also just for overall food.
If you could just share
I'm going to add to that as well, thinking about the healthy built environment, so that there are gardens or farmers markets where people can see where food comes from or have a closer connection, and there's built infrastructure that supports that.
Teaching them how to do a garden.
My elementary school park, there's a park right next to our school, and we go often.
I think having quality schools and employment opportunities within a community or close by is all to keep the community healthy. People don't have to go far out for their kids to go to a decent school or to get a job that pays enough.
I think safety as far as police patrolling or, just making the community feel safe, that they're being watched, they're being taken care of. Does that make sense?
Maybe shared goals are important. When you said schools, it made me think about, shared high-level goals across sectors, agencies, private sector, NGO sector, schools, government. Share some aiming, all in our own way, aiming for the same thing-ish.
I feel that for families to really be able to be healthy, and of course that means eating healthy, the whole system has to embody those values of food as feeding your body, your soul, your culture, that it has to all tie together, and all of the things that were mentioned has to be part of it. I know it's probably a little utopian, but I like to start there because maybe we could aim close to it, where there's gardens and local food and markets and people feel safe to go get them, and they have enough knowledge and this is really reaching, but enough time to prepare. It doesn't have to be very elaborate food, it just has to be healthy food. Yeah, I mean, that it's a food system from my lens.
I think what comes to mind to me are two things. One is meeting people where they are in their communities, and equity of resources, so that every neighborhood in Austin has access to the same level of resources. You go into your grocery store, and your grocery store has the same produce and the same items in it as any other grocery store in the community. And that's when you have equality among all neighborhoods.
I think just a comment to piggyback on what Andrea said. We see a lot of, it's unfortunate, but a lot of competition between neighborhoods and parts of Austin, and why don't they have what we don't have? And I think a lot of that is caused because some higher resource neighborhoods are going to have more than others. So I think you have such an excellent point in that fighting for equity amongst all of Austin. And I think it's a little utopian too, but in general, we need to get there, because otherwise it's always going to be this disparity between areas that are more enriched versus others. And I think until we get there, it's going to be small pockets and neighborhoods kind of, speaking out, and it's injustice. I don't have a solution. I'm just saying.
I guess building equity.
Yeah.
Well, my mom separated my dad, who was born in Ohio. So my mom had a three when they separated. Anyone else? Back in New York. And I moved in with my great aunt.
Just want to have culture to food, because it's important that cultures are respected and not judged. And so food is very close to where we come from. how we manage the nutrition of our families. Many times I see organizations trying to embed a culture that doesn't belong to a culture of the family that we're trying to create change. So we should be respectful.
I used to ride my bicycle with my neighbor and to the creek, come down and just pay the water, collect tap hose because I swore that I was going to waste this straw. And I was like, you wouldn't do it? So that is one of my favorite.
I think developing more healthy fast food places in the area. Mostly most of America eats fast food, but all they have is McDonald's, Burger King. More Subways, more healthy food places that are fast food related.
All the way home, we could not I'm coming from a place of personal experience. I'm from Venezuela, and my kids took beans and rice to school, and we would talk about plantains, and many times they were made fun of it because the food wasn't what expected around the little kids. So I think it's important that we understand the people eating from the kids, especially when they're little, so they don't make fun of the other kids.
So thinking about economic development and just in general. So we welcome fast food restaurants. They're going to help our economy, so on and so forth. What about providing some sort of subsidies or assistance to restaurants that have healthier foods, even if it's the local restaurants, give them a break. I don't know if this already exists, maybe it already exists, I'm not sure, but give them a break over the all-American chain that's going to increase our economy.
And then even riding my bike in the park, but also I had the opportunity to ride my bike to school.
I think sort of to piggyback on that in terms of economic development, I think it's also important to know if they're serving healthy food, but people are making $8 an hour, that's in terms of kind of alignment with all these things happening, they're not going to be able to then afford that food. So even if we say we want more fast food restaurants in this neighborhood to provide healthy food, who's working in those neighborhoods, at those stores, and are they making a wage that they can even afford then to purchase the food? So
That's one thing that crossed my mind too, is a living wage for people.
yeah, I guess I'm being cautious to say that just bringing healthy food to a community is part of the community. I think it needs to be looked at kind of holistically. I learned how to write a so I could fill out some fancy certificates for you.
So we're talking about Runberg specifically, right? Building off a couple of things, I think it's really important to understand who's living in the Runberg area. And also, what do existing stores that supply the area, what do they provide to them in those places? For example, what's HEB in that area? And what HEB supplies in Runberg store may be very different than what they supply in services. Right? So if there's a way to talk with the manager providers for that HEB and connect with the community so that they're providing things that community might want, but don't have the voice to ask for. That may be something that we can, on a systems level, for those of us that understand the systems better, to empower the people in the neighborhood to make sure that those foods are right.
If you'll take a minute.
Another thing that I don't want fast food or rapid access to food is making sure that Uber Eats or other services that could be delivered.
We're keeping our minds working by incorporating the physical movement into our conversation.
In that area. So maybe as a community member, I don't know that I could get pizza for my grocery store and order things to them. If I wanted to, in my culture that I come from, or what I'm used to before I moved to that area, was buying fresh foods and making it, but I'm exhausted from work. I might be more willing to try it. It needs to have some grocery store. So understanding what's available, currently available, understanding what they would like, and then connecting the suppliers.
I think to piggyback off a little bit of what you said, Scott, I think the price differential between, getting a pizza from Domino's for I don't even know what it is, $5, and some of like the Blue Apron or the lettuce kind of thing, which is many times more expensive, but higher quality and healthier. I feel like in that space, there's room for advocacy to have an impact. That there's ways, hopefully, we can even figure some out. And actually, I think some of the people here are actively working on that to lower that discrepancy between what it costs to eat fast and cheap and what it costs to eat fast and healthy. I think that's a really critical point.
So for those of you who work and live in Renfrew, why don't you start thinking about that community?
I think in a healthy community, the systems are all working together in a way that really helps families. And I'm thinking about specifically SNAP and WIC and some of the programs that we have available that can really help families economically be able to get those fresh, healthy foods, and how in a healthy community the systems align so that it's easy to get WIC and SNAP and stay on the programs that can really benefit families, and how we can all work together to make that seamless.
My understanding is that there's a farmer's market store somewhere in Austin. They provide people with food stamps or assistance to where they can get twice the food than they would get at HEB. And it's mostly fresh and good food, vegetables and things like that. It's a farmer's market. If the business community can help, HEB and some of these other stores in these areas that have the same thing for people that's on WIC or these assistant programs where they can buy food at, twice the value at a store. You understand what I'm saying? Like they do at the farmer's market. I think the farmer's market is the only place that allows that. We have to travel a little ways to get there.
I'm with FarmShare, and we work with Sustainable Food Center, and we have 3 mobile markets in the Runberg neighborhood that are opening up just this week for the season. One's at St. John's Episcopal Church, one is at Hart Elementary School, and later this month one is opening up at the North Communities YMCA. And all of them have local produce, healthy grocery items, and local eggs and honey, and we accept SNAP and WIC and SFC double dollars, and everything is sold at reduced prices. So
see, that's the information that I don't think the community even knew about.
So we are here to help make connections with the community and get more information.
So how can we get that information out quicker before you start the business when tomorrow?
Let's see, in the Runberg area.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, how do we get the information out to people before it starts?
So we work, each one of our sites works with the community partners, so St. John's Episcopal Church, and Hart Elementary School, and the North Communities Wise is opening up at the end of October, and Sustainable Food Center is working on the outreach component to work with the community, so we would be happy to meet with all of you and get your connections so we can get you looped in to get that information for your communities.
Some of the model we're using, to Yvonne's comment, we're using community health workers to get that word out to the community, because it's very grassroots as opposed to just like putting something in the paper. A lot of these things are much more very community kind of based, whether that's at a church or at a school.
Yeah, most of the people in these communities, they attend community care clinics. There's certain facilities that the majority of people are going to be going to. And I think that's where the information needs to be provided, like the forms or they're having this at such and such a place. It's kind of like the way they set up the Arch now. If you walk into the Arch, there's an available information booth. I mean, they've got papers on everything you need to know in Austin. for the homeless. But it should be available for other people in communities also. I'm sorry, go ahead.
One of the things we're just starting with People's Community Clinic is to look at, because People's Community Clinic has such a dedication to helping, understanding that there's health and things that happen inside the clinic, but there's so many things that are happening outside the walls that affect the patients, and how can they, as a clinic and as a building and a resource, then connect their patients with those resources. And so we've just kind of started this plan to help train their patient-facing staff to be able to share some of that information related to food. So I love that you're thinking about that, and I'm excited to share that.
And this is part 2, so we've naturally migrated into the part 2, which is, what are you proud of in your community now? And these programs that exist, where do they come from, and who's providing some context for what currently exists based on the conversations that have gone on, but that we still need to get the word out on. Organizations still need to get connected on, and that people still need to get connected to. So people want to share that and provide some context. That's the part 2.
I was on the original team for Restore Lumber, and also work very closely with St. John's. And one thing that is important to be mindful is that last time I did my research project on quality of life, there are about 60 different languages spoken in a very small demographic area. We have recent immigrants, refugees, and of course Austinites as well. And so when we talk about food and we talk about health, it's important to be mindful on how we communicate, because there's the language, the body language, and so forth. And I think it's important to be mindful. I mean, you're not getting the information. I'm sorry about that, but there's a lot more people that are not getting the information for all sorts of barriers, and one of them is acculturation and language.
So part of that was a result of the city and the Health Literacy Initiative as well. So for those of you who have knowledge about funds and campaigns that the city or whatever organization has facilitated your own change and your own ability to meet the needs of the community, please feel free to share that, because I think not everybody has been in the room for a long time and known about the little progression. Like, Marion's been working on a lot of health literacy and language access related issues in her office.
And to piggyback on that, I do think it's important that I don't have the demographic data in front of me, but my understanding is that, yes, because a lot of refugees are resettled at Runberg and Lamar. That's where they're resettled, and lots of different languages spoken there. And I think one of the challenges and opportunities for GAVA and anybody working in that area is how can we provide that information? Because I can tell you right now, at least at SFC, we can speak English and Spanish very well. But once we start getting French or
Arabic and
Urdu or some of these other languages, that's where I know us as an organization, and my sense is that other organizations struggle on wanting to get that same information. So I don't know if that's maybe a need of like, how do we get this information to an area that is so rich in language?
It's also appropriate to mention who's not doing it this time. So one of the organizations that was working with community health workers, especially as related to health literacy, was Latino Healthcare Forum, but they're not here. They could be a resource. I don't know if anybody is still in touch with them and what they're doing, but definitely, point those things out. That's the inventory that we're taking, and that we'll write our report on is who is missing. What links do we still have to put together?
And I would add the Asian American Resource Center. Obviously, Asia has many, many languages. It goes to South America, Spanish. So I would also just like to let everybody here know something that's happening at People's Community Clinic. So we start as a patient-centered medical home, which is an inwardly looking model about how we provide optimal care to our patients. We start as a patient-centered medical home, which is an inwardly looking model about how we provide optimal care to our patients. We are moving now towards something called the community recognize that most of health happens outside the walls of the clinic. That what we actually internally impact is maybe 10 to 20% of the health of our community, of our patients. And that the balance of it is impacted by the kinds of things that we're talking about here. About food or shelter or social connectedness, all the things that you all mentioned previously about what makes for a healthy community exercise. So we are now funded to actually work on those upstream issues. And I share that just so that if you are doing things that you would like us to be part of, or where we can add value to the conversation in terms of the health benefits or health harm circumstances, which we work very closely with Reverend Member Nassar and his office around paid sick days. Because just like the earning of a living wage contributes to your ability to have access to healthy foods, paid sick days contribute to your ability to care for yourself and your family when you are ill, not forcing you to go to work when you shouldn't be because you can't afford to take the time off. So if there are other kinds of opportunities, just kind of remember that People's Community Clinic is very much involved and interested, particularly in the St. John's and Londonburg communities. So, and I welcome any of you who want to come see our clinic, learn more about what we're doing. We're located on Camino Lopez.
And we're going to have some, we're going to do it sooner, but we'll have these later, and you'll have time to write some of these things that you want people to see. We will put up flip charts, and you can mingle. You can come back right before we start at lunch. You can linger right after and let everyone get their lunch, and take time to know the things you think are most important and that you would like to highlight on the flip charts that we have out.
I want to offer 2 resources that we have in my office, among many others, but at least the ones that I've heard. We have hired a language access coordinator. She's been in the office for 6 months. And so if you want to know about language, translation, interpretation of culture, we'll be delighted to share her knowledge. And the other resource I want to share is that I was the project manager for the Asian American Quality of Life Initiative. And I have extensive data, raw data and reports, and you can just call me and I'll be able to share it when you want the data and reports all accessible, and I'll be happy to talk more about it if you have an interest to learn more about that community. And I work with the Latino Advisory Board as well at the City of Austin, but most of us have a lot of information about the Latino community and less information about the Asian American community.
One of the things about St. John's now, St. John's is about 80% Hispanic. I speak no Spanish, not one word. But many of the people at St. John's is probably about 40% non-documented. And so a bunch of the things that would be needed out there, you need somebody to go door to door and talk to Hispanics, and have to go in a way that they're not threatened. You know, the climate is so toxic right now, you know, and so it's people that need things, but they're terrified about, you know, anybody knowing where they are or who they are or whatever. But it doesn't mean that they don't need, you know, help. So, and then we have the clinic there. That's a resource, and then also the school. A lot of kids can go to school, but a lot of them are even afraid to go to school right now. I see a lot of kids in the neighborhood doing school time, and so there's a lot of fear right now in the community. So you need some, you know, actually need some workers that could be go to door and speak Spanish. And you know, where they're not threatened. I think that's the biggest thing that's happening in St. John's right now. just fear.
And so, can you elaborate a little bit more up here? Are you talking around immigration? Is that what you're
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, I originated in St. John when there was 30 families there, right? So then I've seen the change. And so like we went from 100% black to 80% Hispanic at this point. We used to maybe about 5% black at this point in St. John. So the Hispanic culture would need, you know, some understanding in that. And one of the things we talk about healthy food, healthy food is great, but you know, it doesn't fill you up unless you know how to cook.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't put some grease and some texture in there, you know, your kids are gonna go out and play for an hour and they're gonna come right back because they're hungry. So I don't know how y'all are fixing that, but you know, Sally just don't do it.
Healthy fats and adding nutrients.
Well, you know,
Do you mind if I add to what you just said about the community? So I don't know if this is also your experience. It's an experience someone who's going to be in our group later has shared with me that people she works closely with, it's not only the threat of getting deported and the immigration issue, but basically not having as much of a voice and being exploited in the community based on status. So like those two
jobs, you know. And one other thing, the Home Depot thing. Now, many of the things that we've talked about here, one of the things that Greg was talking about, the Home Depot thing, we've done a real pretty good survey, and so a lot of the things are going to be coming in, and so we did identify food as part of having access to food, so people can walk and get good food. You know, because you know, convenience store, you know, is way high. And so it has to be, you know, compatible with something like an HEB or whatever. It might be a smaller deal, but we got 20 acres there that we're dealing with. So there's going to be a lot of different things coming in there. They're bidding, engineers will be coming in bidding for what's going to go in there. So we're still open for some input in that area. So if somebody has some ideas of food or something that can be put in that area, that's still somewhat open. So it's a lot of neat things happening in St. John right now.
I know there was a project in Portland, Oregon that was, I think, kind of like a food court, but it was I want to say that most of kind of the kiosks that were rented out were immigrant families and that kind of food, so it wasn't like, you know, high-end fancy food. Yeah. I mean, so you know, and I've heard a little bit about the Home Depot lot, and I've often thought, is that a possibility of having something around food, but having it be reflective of different cultures in the neighborhood, and having kind of that community buy-in? Is there entrepreneurship opportunities there?
If it's not going to stay.
Just two ideas, both of you. I just want to say that in Singapore, they have hawker stalls which are very similar to what you're talking about, and they don't allow chains in them. So by a pretty simple legislative requirement, you get local food, which is fabulous. The other thing I wanted to share is that UT, because we're out, we literally walk like all the streets because we're doing door to door and we're recruiting and doing, I mean, you will see us out there. Sometimes we run into the same people at different places and they're like, you guys again, oh my gosh. But when the political climate around immigration, like we've gone through this transition, right? Where when we started, it wasn't the way it is now. So we've had to navigate that transition. We used to have gray t-shirts that had big letters that said GABA, but they were gray and blue and kind of low key. And when things changed, we noticed a reaction to those t-shirts. Even though they weren't those 3 dreaded letters, they kind of looked a little bit like it. So we redesigned, simple thing, we redesigned our t-shirts, and they're white now with orange. Like, we're trying to be as non-threatening as possible, and it has made a difference. And of course, as was mentioned, we do have particularly younger Spanish speakers. I think they look non-threatening. They don't look official, you know. And that's been really helpful, and we've had a very good success after we made those changes. So those little things, like the color of your t-shirt can convey a lot, whether it's on purpose or not.
Talk about equitable. So I guess I'll just respond to what you said and what you both said about this idea of stalls, which is happening in flea markets right now. I don't know who's using the flea markets, who's at the flea markets, who there's food and entrepreneurship that is usually cultural there. Just a thought.
I also think we need to be aware of the public charge, talking about the impact of the federal policies, whether it's immigration, public charge regulations, which exclude people who have maybe come out, largely cash assistance from governmental programs from becoming legal residents. The proposal is that will change. And so government, I think, will be able to offer less to this population without jeopardizing their ability to apply for and receive residency. So I think it behooves us, and I like this idea of entrepreneurship code, it behooves us to be thinking about nonprofit sectors and to be thinking about entrepreneurial solutions, because for that population, things like food stamps, SNAP, or whatever, we're looking at a situation where we have to be subversive. So
yeah. Honestly.
Take care of our own.
Yes.
And these people don't think
Right,
because I think you bring up a good point, because double dollars only works as long as somebody has SNAP or WIC. And so if we are seeing a downturn in families using those benefits, we're going to have to get subversive, which we may not do.
Well, one more thing is, we're all here at the table. Austin is a very caring city. For as much as we know about disparities, we also know that Austin, Central Texas has an incredibly high number of nonprofits. We could assume it translates into a caring city. Anyway, my point is that as long as we actually coordinate and organize our efforts, then we can do a lot of really good things, and we can create a big impact. But it all just means that we do have to come together to coordinate and organize, and be okay with leaving our egos at the door, even when it comes to our own organizations.
So that will bring, definitely think about what Yvonne just said, because that is our second part. And we want to get those ideas as clearly as possible, but be thinking about those over lunch. What does that mean? How does that look? What are the ways that you're already coordinating with people, beginning stages, people who you can't even touch across the room yet, but who really want to and feel like that connection is valuable. Just keep thinking about that, because that's definitely a huge part of the second chunk of this conversation. And just for a time check, we have about 45 minutes, 40 minutes to continue this conversation. And if there's, I just wanted to check in with everyone to feel like they're getting to say, they feel like we're on a topic, that we're not missing anything, that something's not glaringly obvious that I'm missing in this conversation or reaction. If you want to just
I want to say one
one thing. Yeah, I think that Carmen mentioned it in the beginning, but as Foundation Communities, I'll represent the affordable housing piece, and I think right now Rumper is pretty affordable, but as she mentioned, with all of these changes that we're proposing, that can really affect property values, and so just keeping that in mind and keeping that in the conversation of gentrification and how that really can affect people's ability to stay really thin. And I don't have a solution, but something to keep in mind and keep in the conversation.
I also want to say if there's something that hasn't ever been said, if you've ever been in one of these meetings, share it. Don't be afraid. I won't judge you. Totally no one will judge you, right? It sounds like what we're hearing, like Regina's saying, be subversive. What we're saying is, what are the most creative things that you can think of that you feel like are maybe better solutions, easier solutions, or maybe just different ways of thinking? That's the whole idea of the design movement. Any contributions you have are valuable, and we're listening to you today.
So I want to say something. I want to say that it's time for the time
Can you refresh a little bit what the course of the conversation is here right now? So
currently what we've stated?
You know, what the question is that we're all trying to address.
So the reason why we're here is we're trying to identify assets, how we can work together, what that means, how we share, funding sources, and specific to the Rumper and St. John area. Whether you're an organization or an individual, you have assets. You are the community, you are assets to the community. So basically either redefining how we use them, better define how we use them, better share that information, better organize that information, all of those things in order to have a plan. So, and fast forward, what would we like to end on today? We'd like to come up with some common goals and priorities. Already you've heard a lot of those mentioned. So even when I hear we started off with people talking about social gathering and social support and equity, but then also safety. If we sat down and ate together more, how is it that we can be not being safer if we get to know each other, we get to know each other's stories, not just food stories, but building humanity, right? So there's some of these common goals. Regina?
So, assets. Just want to let everybody here know, everybody here in the whole building, People's Community Clinic added this new facility we have with the goal of seeing up to 20,000 people without 17 beds. So there is capacity. We are taking new patients in all of our service lines, pediatrics, adolescent, adult, and women's health. The women's health center is actually a little bit farther south. It's in the Cherrywood area, but you can be making referrals. If you clients or people that you know have trouble getting in, be persistent. How do we add new providers? It's a demand that just increases. So we don't start out by adding all the providers that would be necessary to serve 20,000 patients, because we'd be paying them before we had the services being delivered. So as we have more demand, we will continue to add providers that are providers, physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants. So we are a federally qualified health center, provide community care, and our services are decided based on we pay all of the governmental benefits, governmental insurances. We are there to serve the uninsured. We take the ACA Obamacare policy. So it's a resource that everybody should know. We're actively taking new patients.
Did I answer your question?
The question was really for these remaining 45 minutes. What is the outcome that you want to have? What is the question that's on the table that we're all?
This conversation, one, is to define our basically all of this morning is so that we can start to see what there is, so that we can define in the end, our end product is defining common goals, and then to make actually action items and to define who's in what zip code, and what people are responsible. So where programs happening, do we have, what we have here is agenda action items. So within the context of those common goals, then what is the programming, what are line items that we can go through, and then as a group, move forward with. And
So,
maybe some of those will be
Joanna,
more
are we at the point of identifying assets right now?
Yes, we're
Okay.
still discussing
Okay.
that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
finding
Thank
out.
you for the question. Because so then I just wanted to say that my organization, Common Threads, can provide cooking and nutrition education. We're already in several schools in the Runberg, St. John's area. We have a SNAP Ed grant. So we have funding to do it. Most of our education is focused on children pre-K through 8, but we also have some funding to do parent workshops. We have a series of 3 parent workshops if there are adults in the neighborhood who are interested. Our philosophy is about healthy eating that's joyful, healthy eating that is culturally appropriate, and healthy eating that fills you up. Right? So you're not coming back an hour later saying I want more. So that's where we come from, and we would love to come teach anyone to cook if anyone wants that.
And I believe we're doing that program, the Small Bites program.
That's it, yeah.
We're doing it at people's, and it's available not just for members, not just for our patients, but for members of the community. And we do cooking classes, and somebody can come on Tuesday nights for Zumba. Those are all available, no charge to the community.
So I'd like to remind people that this is perfect conversation. And then also we'd like to identify, again, the funding sources. How did your conversation get started? Who else are you talking to? And when we put our boards up, I don't even have them. If anybody feels like, yes, someone else still needs to be at the table and there's someone missing, definitely we're at that stage of the conversation. But also part of this is to remember that we're trying to get also to funding streams and how people are working together and maybe even how those relationships started. So and also who's not at the table maybe because they don't exist anymore. So I know maybe a lot of you got started, maybe you didn't know what the Runberg area was and that was a unique area and that there was a certain demographic health issues happening, and then Restore Runberg started and you knew about it, and at the time they had funding, but that funding doesn't exist anymore. So maybe identifying some pathways that allowed you to get where you're at, but that don't exist or have lost infrastructure or have lost including funding. That's also
We're changing our model of our office from just being engagement would be something like what we're doing here, and doing more outreach, which means going out in the community. And we have them, the last year, we have extra funding because we save a lot of money. And we actually bought a booth to go out in the community. And I'm with the city of Austin. And so,
Sorry, what department are you with again?
community engagement. And we're changing the model from engagement to more outreach, being out in the community. So we have that resource to be able to be out and about. But I do need help to know where to be out and about. So for example, I wrote down Common Threads, which I'm sure you all cook amazing, so that will be fun. People's Community Clinic, Foundation Community. So I want you to know that we have that resource, but I need to go the extra mile. And that extra mile could be you helping me identify locations, events, or maybe needs from the community that I can connect with a department and bring that information directly to a community that you feel will benefit out of that information.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that's really a good idea because, we're often out doing tabling events and, health fairs, and so just that maybe it's another information thing, right? Making sure that you know that things are going on so you can come with your booth.
Yes, please. That will be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Elliot, how are you doing?
Good, we got about a half hour.
Awesome. Any notes that you would like to provide? Any would you like to pipe in?
Well, I think something I'm interested in hearing, just touch on a little bit, is in the interest, so in this first little half, talk about what we envision, and now we're moving towards where we are in the process of getting there. If you know of specific partnerships that have worked, or if there are any collaborations that have been impactful in whatever it is you observe, whether it's life or work, in the interest of just getting up to speed, for me personally, and for GABA as a new presence in this, to understand what you know has worked, and if it has, why, or the opposite, what didn't work, whether that's directly related to funding or just people weren't eye to eye on certain principles coming into a partnership.
So maybe for who else needs to be at the table, one of the things that we found, we reached out to the apartment managers. Our clinic is kind of, not circle, but across the street from us, there are a large number of apartment complexes, and they're low-income apartments. The managers of those apartments are, by and large, seem to be very committed to helping their residents, to doing the right thing by their residents. I think that reaching out to them, because they communicate with their residents, so they can offer things. I was really surprised with the level of engagement that they were doing with their residents. I had a particular stereotype of what apartment managers were going to be like. I was pleasantly surprised. My stereotypes was wrong, at least for this group of apartment managers. And I think that that's really like an unrecognized resource in the community. They know the people that live with them in their apartments, and they're actually trying to share information and help those people who that could be a resource for us.
And some of them are open to sharing space, like the community spaces for classes, and to have people, but I believe you have to contact them.
Well, they might be somebody who might want to ask that a mobile market be set up nearby, if they happen to know what the tenants need.
Set it up at the clinic across the street from mobile apartment complexes.
And I was about to speak to that. So one of our most successful partnerships is with FarmShare, and while it's not in the Runberg area, but at our Southeast Health and Wellness Center, FarmShare is there once a week, and it's probably one of their most successful markets. So we've been able to provide our patients and the surrounding community with healthy food. And many of those patients that talk to us tell us that they've never actually seen such pretty vegetables. You know, we were talking about when you go to the store in those neighborhoods, the food selection there's totally different than if you're in Westlake. I mean, that's just the reality, the way it is now. So that's one of the things they tell us. They're like, I've never seen cucumbers look so pretty, and tomatoes.
Yeah, and it really matters.
And it makes a huge difference, and they sell out every week. I mean, I've gone afterwards to try to buy something, and they're out. So, I mean, it's been a great partnership.
I'm going to say something that is just the most obvious thing. I know that everybody in this, I'm guessing that everybody who's attending this event wants to vote. But are there people that you know who aren't registered? Are there people who you work with who aren't registered? Registration ends, I think, October 9th. I think the most important and most immersive thing we can do is register people to vote. Really, we only have a few more days to get people registered, and then we have to work to get people to the poll. And people have to understand what's at stake. Programs like SNAP are at stake. You know, these are, don't get me started. But at any rate, do whatever you can to register people that you know to vote, and to help them understand what the issues are.
Regina, I love your rabble-rousing. I fully endorse it. I'm an old rabble-rouser myself. But to take a little bit of a turn, I just wanted to kind of return to the what you were saying about what our goal here is, and suggest, because I'm interested, to hear, which we know from some what y'all offer, but also what you could ask for within this group, and I have my own ideas that I wanted to share. So UT School of Public Health has an expertise in research, and that's what we can bring to the table. So I know many of you are writing grants, looking for ways to show evidence that what you're doing works, that is something that we can help you with. We can help you, I personally can help write a statistics section or a background section if you're submitting a grant. So I wanted to just put that all in your heads. I understand it's a complex process. It's not something that's going to be instantaneous, but file it. And I'll give my card to anybody who's interested. And if I or the UT School of Public Health specifically can't help you, because I understand, you know, you have differences in exactly where y'all are working, I will do my best to connect you to somebody who can. So that's what I can offer. What I would like to ask for is a connection to recruit residents for the research that we're doing. And you all are really ground zero for us because you know, we are in that little bit of an ivory tower, completely admit that. And we do have connections to some communities by virtue of who we're working with, but of course not all of them, and sometimes not where we need to be. And because we're moving into the Runberg area, that's a special interest to us to try to find folks that can kind of introduce us and offer the participation in the research that we're doing.
Adults only?
Yes, we're focused, and we don't always, but yes, adults only.
And for those of you who haven't signed in, please remember to sign in because this is how we're going to connect with each other and you can locate the others of us who are here.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Do you have specific research interests you're currently looking into right now?
Yes. Currently, our big project is an assessment of the mobile markets, farm stands, Fresh for Less initiative, and we're focused in Dove Springs and Runberg. And so this time we are looking only at adults in those areas to see if this initiative is increasing consumption of fruits and vegetables, purchasing patterns, all of that.
That our kids need motivation. So I have a resource that we're piloting. So I'm gonna describe very quickly and then I'm gonna do an asking. So thank you for that formatting. So like I told you before, we just hired a language access coordinator in our office and we're piloting a program that's called I Speak Austin. What we are doing is that we're passing cards to community members that have the language that they speak on one side in their own language and on the back is in English. So at least you don't have to guess what's the language that they're coming to you. And we're printing it and distributing free for anybody. We're piloting right now with a health equity action team from Austin Health. What my asking is that if you don't mind letting me know if you need any, we'll go ahead and send those to you somehow. We have several languages. I think we have about 40 different languages. And we already will have it online as well. And right now, what we're doing is putting stickers everywhere until at least asked to stop doing that. So nobody has told me that. Eventually, I'll probably get a call from Poland or something. But it is available for organizations, non-profit, community members, and for as long as I can manage printing without charging anybody, I will do that with our budget. So if you need information, just let me know, and I'll be happy to share what we have.
So are you saying that the new language access coordinator and the 40 different languages that you are offering translation and interpretation services for free for nonprofits in the community? Is that what you're saying?
We don't have money for that, but that will sure be my dream in the future. What I have right now is an initiative that will help nonprofits and community members at least identify the language they're coming to your space, whether it's a clinic or maybe soliciting vegetables. So you don't have to do the guessing of is this Burmese, is this Hindu, is this Parsi. I mean, most of us can get if it's Spanish, French, Italian, those are easier to recognize. But when you go to some of the Muslim countries and other languages that are a little more unique, there is something difficult. And by the way, in the Latin countries, we speak many languages. Like in Peru, we speak Quechua. Well, I'm not from Peru, I'm from Venezuela. But Quechua is a language that is spoken over there. So, typically we identify Latinos with Spanish, but we also have the language. So I wish I could provide that availability. I don't, but we are providing the availability for City of Austin departments that are engaging with the community. And so we have a very small budget and we'll use it to the maximum amount that we can.
I don't know, but maybe somebody who's missing is the multicultural refugee farm. They could maybe work with specific communities on making sure that there's food that people want from their home countries.
They also have an interpretation service in the Multicultural Resource Coalition. Yeah.
So I'm going to pass out these and these, and as you think of those, if you write them down and stick them on that, when we break in about 20 minutes, you can take some and pass it around.
Are those for ideas or?
For folks who should be at the table, sorry,
Okay.
yeah. Any groups or individuals that you think need to be here that aren't, you can jot it down. I've noted some, but for others that come to mind, like MRC, they'll be great.
Sure, I can speak. So I'm with Urban Roots, and we provide we provide paid internships for young people to grow food on our farm in East Austin. And so we have a program for 14 to 17-year-olds and another program for 17 to 23-year-olds. It's a paid internship where they learn leadership development while learning how to grow food. And then we donate a lot of that back. So my ask is helping spread the word to promote these paid internship opportunities. We provide transportation from Lanier and Reagan that are serving in McCallum, LBJ, and Eastside, but specifically in Lanier and Reagan. So helping spread the word is really helpful. So we donate 40% of what we grow to local soup kitchens and food pantries. And so if there is a soup kitchen or food pantry, we give a lot to Caritas, to the food bank, Meals on Wheels. But we're always looking for food relief partners. So if you know of a soup kitchen or food pantry that's looking for super fresh, local produce grown by young people, we can provide produce to different groups. So if you want to reach out to me if you're interested, I'd be happy to share that there. Send it up.
And I'm just curious, thinking about all the different kind of shared resources, services, informational kind of stuff. Are there any groups that are really exclusively focused on just trying to build more connectedness in the community? Like not exclusively focused on that, or as a big portion of their work, just between the citizens and their communities? Yeah, all kinds of stuff, like just between trying to build more social capital. I think also like I'm curious about people like on the ground.
There's still a network of, I would say, Monica, because she's one of the leaders around her stuff. I don't know anybody else. Roy, how do you experience people and community members who are organizing right now? Who's just trying to put all the parts together as a community?
Oh, I don't have a problem. People I've been in contact with, they've had tremendous information for us, for people who just come into the city, and especially folks that are homeless.
To ask questions?
Excuse me?
Who do you go to ask questions?
I go to the Resource Center downtown. You know, they really have everything I need. If Trinity, if the church don't have it, they provide a lot for people, for us finding some place to live, to eat, clothes, you know, basic stuff. I'm talking basic. And they provide pretty good information for me. I mean, I don't know about the other communities. I don't know how in contact you guys are with downtown services.
But you're having to go outside of your community, downtown, to find that information, and that's one of the challenges.
I mean, even though you just open up a location on the north side, it's kind of small, but it's still a location. Still have to go downtown to get most of the information I need, you know, as far as community, health, that type of stuff.
see maybe a gap as kind of this place-based connecting point.
Yeah.
Single point of contact, sort of resource center.
Pretty much, or something like that.
We asked some people, so now's the time, if you will be leaving and not coming back after lunch, to let the group know what your assets are. And I know Angela will be leaving, and she has something to share. And then we just closed that door with keys, and close that cabinet space. All right, Angela, would you mind?
Yeah. Some of you guys may know traditionally that we may operate through a network of partner agencies. So we have about 300 plus partners within a 21 county territory. Some of those are do exist in the Rumberg and St. John's area. That's some of our partners here today. So in addition to those partnerships and trying to create healthier access to foods through our distribution network, as well as creating a healthier environment in the pantry, we also provide programs out in the community as well as at the food banks. So we offer nutrition education classes and gardening classes to SNAP eligible clients. We have a host of social services team members that go out in the community and assist folks with benefits such as SNAP, Medicaid, CHIP, all of those programs.
Can you state your organization again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, this is Central Texas Food Bank. And then we also operate distribution programs, mobile pantries that basically go out to food desert locations that don't have access to a food pantry or grocery store and set up on a monthly basis. We have a couple that operate in the St. John's, Rumberg area. And more recently, we've been working directly with healthcare partners to promote a food insecurity screening tool. We're working with their staff to screen patients for food insecurity and link them directly to both food banks and community resources. So if that's something that your clients are interested in terms of nutrition classes or working directly to link to our resources, we're happy to do that resource.
Is anyone else leaving, not coming back after the break? Okay, if you wouldn't mind. Well, you've already shared, but if there's any last thoughts, we'd like to hear that.
I think that opportunities for young people through working with us directly, and then opportunities to receive produce from our farm. Those are the two things I'd love to share.
Can I next?
Sure.
Hi everyone, I'm Ivan with Central Health, and for those of you who may not know about Central Health, we're a public agency that makes sure that Travis County residents with low income get quality health care. And yes, we are primarily, we are focused in Travis County. We're funded by Travis County taxpayer dollars. So we work with a variety of nonprofits, health organizations, clinics, hospitals, to make sure that residents have a wide range of healthcare services. One of our objectives for the next couple of years as part of our strategic work plan is to implement a healthcare delivery strategy that is based on people and place. We're partnering with Austin Public Health and Travis County HHS on a health collaborative planning project where we're overlaying a whole bunch of data and looking at population health outcomes. One of the key things that we're realizing is the number of unserved individuals across Travis County by census tract, and Rumberg happens to be the top census tract that is has the highest number of people that are not being served by Central Health funded clinics, which includes People Community Clinic, Coastal Health Care, Community Care Health Centers. And so in my role, engagement and outreach, is to create an outreach strategy that helps make sure that these people are being seen by a healthcare organization So I'm here to learn about how do we shape that strategy. First and foremost, my question was, is it because of clinical capacity? Community care is at capacity at the clinics that are in close proximity to Bunbury, but People's Community Clinic still has capacity. So then we have opportunity to channel people their way. And anyway, the conversation can continue, but that's one of the things that we're trying to finish.
I have a couple resources to offer. I'm with Austin Public Health in chronic disease prevention. A couple things I think most of the group is probably aware of this opportunity, but we do have a chronic disease prevention mini grant opportunity that comes out every year in November. So we'll be releasing it next month. It's a small grant award of about $2,500. And two of the topics relate specifically to food. One is healthy nutrition just overall, and the second is healthy food pantries. And actually, several folks in the room have received grants before through this, including Foundation Communities, Common Threads, People's Community Clinic, Community Care has received the grant. And so that could be an asset for GAVA moving forward into the community. We'd love to see grassroots organizations take advantage of this for specific projects to receive funding to do those projects. The second thing is data. We have a lot of data at the health department, and in the next week we're going to be releasing a GIS tool that anybody can use, and you can actually see at the census tract level different health data that we get from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that are at the census tract level. So it could be beneficial to see rates of obesity, rates of diabetes, food-related chronic diseases at the census tract level. We'll have that ready and on our website for next week. So that could be something that might be useful to the group moving forward. And then my ask is that, I don't know how to phrase this, but I think we need a fundamental culture shift around how we think about sugary drinks in our community. And a lot of folks in the room are working on this at the policy systems, environmental change level. But I think anything that we can do, and we would love to collaborate and work together on this, whether it's in a policy systems, environmental change kind of way or an education kind of way. I think that's going to be really fundamental as we move forward looking at nutrition.
When are those tracks coming out?
The great?
How do you get the
data. The data. It's going to be on our Austin Public Health website, and then you can click on it, and it'll be a tool that you can use to kind of zoom in. You can even put an address in and say, okay, this is where I live. I'd like to know my health data from my census tract. So I can share that with the group to get that out.
Is that something that you would use in all?
I'm interested in obesity.
Yvonne, if you are doing outreach in Renberg for health, do you need places to distribute materials and table and stuff like that? It seems like we need a clearinghouse for events.
You mean like a calendar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a way to exchange information.
So one of our staff members relays that information. However, she's now, Central Health is expanding services to Eastern Travis County, and she does outreach, and she's focusing a lot of our time and efforts in Eastern Travis County, which is why we're going to need to do a little more, especially knowing that Renberg has the highest number of served individuals throughout the county.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you have leaflets or cards or...
I will say this about coordinating assets is United Way. They're not here, but they do coordinate assets, and there is a meeting you can go to share your events and to basically connect with other people and get on a shared calendar. So that is available. That's the only one I know of that's pretty active, and they tend to focus on groups that it can be active. But potentially there are resources. That's what they do as well.
We have an event calendar that focuses mostly on local food and agriculture related events, and anybody can submit an event, and then our staff, we're partnered with Austin Food Shed Investors on it, and it's a Texas Local Food calendar. You can just go to texaslocalfood.org and click on events and enter a food event there. And then in about 2 days, and we'll approve it. And that's mostly geared toward agriculture, local
put an event on there, nonprofits, businesses,
Anybody.
government,
Anybody. Yeah, we even have events from SCORE, or the businesses, because we work on economic development, so we have business assistance classes and so forth are there. It's just, it's not really, it's not anything like the edible communities calendars. It's not like restaurant events. It's not that.
Bless you.
So that's out there. It's been pretty successful. It's been out there for 4 or 5 months, I guess.
And how is that funded through your organization?
We just kind of bootstrapped it, seated the pants. Austin Food Shed Investors is a strong investor. We're going to look for a couple of other community partners. It only costs us about $5,000 a year to run it.
Would anybody else like to share some assets?
Anyone use Antwerp? Anyone use Antwerp?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Antwerp.
Any thoughts on Antwerp for those who used it? For those who consumed the information and or put information on? Any feedback?
I mean, in all honesty, it's been just speaking from personal experience and trying to update the information. It's been challenging because of the format in which they have us updated, so it's extremely time consuming. We actually had to use a project manager just to update all the information. So that's been our biggest challenge.
In terms of other assets, I was just going to mention, I work for the Neighborhood Services Unit in Austin Public Health. We have like 6 neighborhood centers that provide basic needs assistance, rent and utility assistance, social workers that do case management, and public health nurses. And I'm currently working at the St. John Community Center. And just in terms of food, all of our centers partner with Central Texas Food Bank and do lots of food distributions, fresh foods for families, and we have food pantries and what people call shop for, which I wish we would figure out a different way to name all that because nobody knows what that is. But it's good food.
What is it called?
People call it a shop for because you can go to the food bank and get, anyway. Shop for. It's not very descriptive of what you can get. But anyway. And then we also partner with volunteers from Wheatsville and Sprouts, and also bring us a lot of fresh produce and other meats and different kinds of things. So we have a lot of food distributions. But I was also going to say I really appreciated what Roy was saying earlier about where are some of these distributions, because in a lot of our distributions we see 200 and 300 families, and it feels great to be giving out that much free food and free produce to that many families. But I go to a lot of different distributions within our unit, and we see a lot of the same people, which is totally great. But it just kind of makes me wonder, how many people are we really serving? And our people, we feel like we're doing a lot of outreach and getting the word out. But if you ask people on the street, do they really know? Do the people we want to really have that information? Are we, how can we do that better and make sure that the people that need food get it? Because whenever I hear people need food, I'm like, there's so much free food. I just want people to know about it.
I'm not coming back after lunch. My name is Rebecca Taylor. I work with Mission Capital, and something we're trying to explore more about is how to support the nonprofit community around data. And so understanding what data sources are out there are great to know more about. So I'd love to have conversations with anyone who's interested in sharing more about that and the data needs around that in the food sector or any other sector for that matter. But I don't know if I have anything to offer. Just throwing that out there since I'm not coming back after lunch.
Do you guys work with public agencies to make sure that all that data is overlaid? And we have like a countywide, citywide, whatever
So we are early stages of exploring how to support nonprofits. I'd love to have a conversation about that because that was something we've been looking at secondary data sources and how nonprofits can access.
Will the data be available to anyone or just to Mission Capital members?
Oh, this isn't about producing data. It's about trying to help nonprofits access data or find ways to collaborate around data. So it's not necessarily for members only. It's just broader community, nonprofit community support.
It sounds like you have a lot to offer though in that capacity. So.
Well, we're exploring ways to provide support, and so as a researcher, yeah.
I can connect you toward that.
Would Mission Capital be interested in like research results kind of data, or I'm not sure?
Well, right now it's super just exploratory, trying to figure out how to support the nonprofit community in this way, and kind of because there's so much data out there, right?
Yeah.
Tons of data. It's not always connected. And
Yeah.
I just mean technically connected. I mean, it's like the insights.
I understand.
Data source to be connected
Yeah.
and shared out broadly. So how do we build more connected?
Okay, you have to take one too.
All right.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because, like, as I mentioned earlier, our team is working with Austin Public Health and Travis County Health and Human Services. And so we have 3 public health entities in town that are coming together for a collaborative health planning effort around data. That they're doing amazing work, and I love it.
And I'd love to learn more too. So my job's to learn right now.
Yeah.
Joy, do you know what the status is of that LBJ school initiative on broad data collection around sustainability?
We can't hear you very well. Sorry. Thank you.
There was an initiative out of the LBJ school.
The sustainability indicators
The
project?
sustainability, yeah.
I mean, as far as I know, that's still out of the RJK Center, but they don't have any updates.
Yeah, I do reports every few years. So
They were working on food as being cross-sector.
Right.
But that was a year ago, the last time I heard them.
That's not just the gym coach's responsibility. Who did we say we were responsible?
pull cards up for
Everybody. So that includes.
We have about 7 minutes. So are there any burning desires, calls for assets that you feel like don't exist? Things you forgot to share before, or one last ask, or things that we can think about over lunch? Please share.
I can just speak real quick about what Caritas can offer. So we help those individuals that are experiencing homelessness get into housing. So for that, they do have to go through the coordinated assessment, which is available at 4 their community sites where they can do that on an in-person basis. And then we, specifically to the food piece, we have our community kitchen that serves lunch to anybody in need of a meal Monday through Friday from 11 to 12:30. We do have 2 food pantries, one at each location, but those are available just to those that are receiving services from Caritas. So I want to throw out and ask too, is there another way that we can support this area with food that's kind of outside the box of what we're already doing? I just want to throw that offer out there. If there's some way we can help and look at something outside of the box from what we're doing, we're open to explore that as well. So.
Do you work with Travis County?
We do collaborate with them with some of that. And then we have been also having a refugee resettlement program, which is kind of phasing its way out now. But we can even offer some information about where, we've placed folks in the area if there's a need to try to figure out where to get to those folks. We can talk about that as well.
I want to, if I can also just make a plug, because your idea has been circling in my hamster brain for a while, about looking at new ways to support this sector. I'm aware there's a lot of social services and providers here, but the food sector is also an economy. And jobs are critically important for health and access. So I would like to offer just either in the afternoon or if you have to leave, I'll send you an email, but to what would it look like, or what are ways that in an organizational capacity or by yourself you might help the people who are trying to sell good food or produce good food and bringing them into this space and looking at that as a lever to increase the amount of healthy food that is in the Rodenberg St. John's area. So it's not about food, but the product is food.
Even in church, right?
One idea I have, and I'll talk to you about it later, But since you're mentioning that, one of the groups I put up on who else needs to be up at the table, there's a group called the Small Business Incubator something. It's kind of like the way the way she described themselves to me was kind of like Capital Factory for poor people. And so the idea is that, you know, if you go to Capital Factory, you need to help your idea because you're creating an app or some technology, blah, blah, blah. Versus if you want to start a laundry business or you want to open up a food truck or something like that, that's more not the high-tech, high-money, how do you do that? And they have business development classes in English and in Spanish. And we've been kind of playing, I don't know, tag for the past year and a half about are there specific business development efforts around food? And again, I would love for there to be this food entrepreneurship happening maybe in St. John's in that old Home Depot spot, using them and taking people from the community who are interested in this and gaining their skills and creating livelihood and at the same time creating healthy food. So that's just putting it out there. But
The Economic Growth Business Incubator, EGBI.
And I just want to mention that when we teach people to cook healthy food, then our expectation is that demand for healthy food in a neighborhood will go up, and so that might change the the spectrum of what people want to buy. The other thing is, although we have funding to provide cooking and nutrition education for little kids that's done in school or in a really simple after-school setting, we also have a more intensive course that trains slightly older kids with real culinary skills, and we don't have funding to offer that in Austin right now, but if we did, we've often wondered if that couldn't help those children kind of look at various careers that involve food preparation.
Well, and out in Elgin, we're working on building a business food incubator, shared use commercial kitchen, and we should have that built by the end of 2020. And hopefully that will be a model for a shared use commercial kitchen, business development incubator, community teaching kitchen, maybe even including a really cool kids kitchen with low counters.
Oh, cool. Where is that?
Well, it's on paper.
Yeah, okay.
It's in here. But we're hoping that we'll be able to develop that as a model for neighborhood replication and in the areas, say, within 50 miles or so of our cities, where middle and lower income people are having to move and are commuting all the way, in our case, commuting to Austin for an average of $12 an hour, and that those numbers just don't work. It's just not sustainable. So what can we do in Elgin to look at food processing jobs that'll pay somewhere in that range, provide good food to the community, and provide a few jobs closer to home. So that might be a replicable model. I hope.
So if no one has anything to share, we're at 12:14, and we will actually give you homework for those of you coming back, or for those of you not coming back. I'm pretty sure Eric's going to send out an email. We'll have his email. You can respond to this as your homework if you'd like to respond. You won't be able to put a sticky, but how could this conversation apply to your current activities? So if you think, what could you change right now based on the conversation that we've had? And then another question, what does a community food system mean to you? And we've hit on a lot of this, but if you could tell us in a sentence or more, or several sentences on different Post-its, please give us that information on Post-its and put it on the papers we will have up. And we'll write those out for you. So, how could this conversation apply to your current activities right now? Like, what could you change immediately? What could you put in motion immediately just from having this conversation? Little tweaks that would make a difference. And then also, and it could be that you have a lot to say about one and not the other, and that's fine. But then the other is, what does a community food system mean to you? And to system.
So does this sound like a good thing to us?
And we opened up a lot of that in meetings. Being at a table together, sharing time together, it means, goodness, there was a lot shared at the very beginning based on your stories as well about part of the community aspect, but then we're getting into this idea that it's also an economy. How do we bring that in? How do we make this complete? How do we get to where the money is being generated from service and that idea of food system, a more autonomous, healthy, funded system?
What if we took all of this?
So answering those two questions. So we'll be able to break for lunch and we will come back to just again also set the frame. Does everybody understand that? Do we have a question about those two areas to fill out those students? And I'd just like to remind you that when we come back, our end, at the end of the day, we'll be coming, again, we've shared a lot of priorities that sound like they're common, but we'll want to be able to list those common goals and top priorities. So top priorities for the Rumberg, St. John's area. And then in conclusion to have some agenda action items. And we want to know, part of what we want to know as well, we may put up a sticky to identify what actions and in what geographic area with what organization and or person are happening right now. And we did this for those of you guys who were at the last one. We did that as well when we wrote up on the board. And that's to identify funding streams, location of where funding is going, what the funding is being used for, and to be able to have a conversation about it.
So, for example.
And then Joanna, do you know what the ultimate follow-up is once all this information is gathered together?
Elliot.
Yes, we're going to first receive, it'll take a little bit of time to get everything in. We're planning a gathering of funders in January, where we'll hopefully have a cogent, digestible message about the gaps that are there, the opportunities that we have heard from the community as partnerships that need to happen and that need to be funded and supported. And then that will hopefully begin a very concrete discussion about what a program or what a system of partnerships would look like for the purposes of getting us to where we started today. What is a healthy community that we have all envisioned? Everybody else is doing something similar, so we're hopefully going to be able to kind of guide us towards a common theme.
Interesting, thanks.
Sorry. I'll pray that doesn't happen.
Last questions?
So.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We'll break for lunch. We will be back at
1:30.
whatever your schedule says. Please open up your schedule. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So people don't mind getting on their feet, and then we'll have the introductions for the new people joining our circle, and then we'll move forward with Dr. Nick. So there's going to be so that area over there, and then this area over here where Elliot is, and then this area at the window. That's going to be area 1, 2, and 3. So I would like for you guys to self-sort into your 3 choices are, if you had a preference, your number 1 preference would be grow food in your own garden, grow food in a community garden, or go to the store and get your vegetables from the produce aisle.
What would you rather?
Your first one, that is own garden, community garden, go to HEB.
Joanna, is it personal preference?
This is personal reference. As a human, when you get to your house, dwelling, personal space, yes, what you do in your own personal space.
Yeah. Is that like what we want, what we do,
your
or
number
what we
1
like
choice?
No, but what about timing?
Not what you do, what you prefer to do. What you ideally do. So that is own garden, community garden, and go to the store.
But the store includes the farmer's market, right?
Okay, this is very unclear to me what the choices are here. Yeah.
are going to include the farmers.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, and these same three, are we?
I'm still thinking. Okay, no, I don't want to go to a community garden.
That caveat makes me like.
So you can be in the middle, if you're really that torn, then the middle is.
Go to the dark side.
So look around, who would be doing what you're
It's all about economics, guys. It's all about economics.
Alright, so.
You're undecided, Joey.
You grow it
No,
up and over to your house.
I've got my food then.
Oh, got it. Okay, yes, it's very relevant. The two question, if you had your choice, the first one that you would pick, ideally, picnic over there. You would have a picnic to eat your food. You would go to a fancy restaurant, or you would make food in your own kitchen.
Oh my god, that's tough.
No, I like own kitchen, fancy restaurant,
Well,
picnic.
this is what I do.
What if you pick it and then you take it?
I know, this one's hard for me.
Then I'm still in the same middle.
This might be a middle that we all like equally.
I mean,
spots.
but I mean, most of my meals are here. 1 or 2 meals out of the week are there. Once a year.
I don't like fancy restaurants. I like small little places.
Well, it could be that your idea of fancy eating out is just what you like, so you can define it in that way, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of outside.
Eating out.
Eating out.
Mine is everything in moderation, so here I am in the middle. But this is also a diffusing between the two, like.
Well, I cook the food at home and then I take it out.
Me too.
Yeah, no, that's picnic.
Okay.
But you're right, you could have two different kinds of picnic, cooking your own
Versus going to the
food,
store,
or
getting it,
taking.
yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
No store-bought potato salad over here.
So how about someone who feels very strongly about the area that you're standing
Yeah.
in? Please, Elliot.
I like to cook.
Scott?
Yeah, so for us, the men cook in the family, and it's how we discipline and learn and talk. Everything evolves around somebody's in trouble, we're gonna cook. Somebody did something good, we're gonna cook.
Oh yeah, can I be in your family?
Here you are, very strong.
Yeah, I like to cook. Everything tastes better outside, I think, so.
The barbecue, that's kind of a picnic. A little bit, that could be both, it depends.
I like to be in control of what's in it, what's in my food, and also how much I spend in it, on it.
Okay.
So that's why I'm here.
I like my cooking. I like the flavor of my food.
Nice, okay. Anybody else feel strongly about your area and want to share?
Now I'm having regret about choosing, because I'm like, I'm with you, like our eating is a big deal, sitting around a table, and that's a big value in our house, but I don't cook. My husband cooks, so I have to be in charge.
So someone in your house cooks?
But I'm like, oh, but I'm gonna eat at home with my family.
Okay.
Takeout.
Takeout, yeah.
No, I don't like cooking, but there are other people to cook in my household, and I prefer eating at home.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, we'll try a couple more. If you had your choice, the first one, your favorite, and again, this might be somewhere in between, raw food. You want to eat your food raw, ideally. You stir fry, just a little bit of heat, oil, that kind of idea, and then soup.
Oh no. I buy my food.
Yeah. I'm super. I do
I mean, my mouth is water.
What are we doing? I'm not missing.
Where, how do you prefer your vegetables? Raw?
Oh.
Lightly cooked?
Vegetables? I prefer
Or
raw.
in a soup?
Raw vegetables?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like vegetables.
We like it.
I thought you meant the entire, all the
This
food
is
raw.
my choice, so I might
She's
eat
in the middle.
solo. I might get island.
You're just the middle.
All right. And then the last one, vegan, vegetarian, or omnivore?
Oh, I eat anything as long as it's dead and cooked.
I was just not still moving.
And then if you don't eat processed foods, but you eat everything, you can stand here in the middle. Like. All right. Anyone feel strongly about that choice and would like to share?
Yes. I'm gonna move, sorry, I'm over here.
I'm not vegan. My partner's vegetarian and I'm dairy free, so we meet in the middle and we just do vegan. But I sometimes add chicken to it, so I'm not vegan. But I love vegan food.
So it's a community value that you have. Awesome. Anybody else?
I wouldn't consider myself as a true vegetarian, but prefer to have more vegetables and stuff than meat, so I eat meat very rarely, and I always take a veggie option over the meat. So that's kind of what
I don't eat pork. I don't eat red meat.
All right.
It's chicken and fish.
Okay.
Yeah, vegetables.
Anybody else want to
I
share?
eat meat every day if I can.
Thanks, Sue. Deron,
Lots of boys
would you like to
and
share
like-
anything?
I like meat. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
give it
the
up.
meat lovers, particularities. All right, thank you guys for participating and thank you for sharing.
Thanks for leading this exercise.
So now we know even a little bit more about each other.
Betsy Ross's glass back here.
And now for the new people joining the circle, we'll catch you up in a second and we'll move forward then, but I'd like you to introduce yourselves, so your name, your organization, and then if you were in another session before you were here, and maybe how food intersected with that area, if it did.
Okay. I'm Mitzi Neville. I'm the executive director at the North Austin YMCA. So we're on Renberg, 1000 West Renberg. One of my directors is in another session, Kenny. I couldn't make the first session. Sorry, I had a meeting. So I'm here to hear all about it. So I don't have anything to give to you as far as the first session, but my branch in particular is a unique YMCA branch. We built it with the City of Austin. So it's half rec center, half YMCA. And so we have a unique membership style where we have community memberships. Anybody can come in, you just have to have an ID. And what we're seeing a lot is people experiencing homelessness. So I really have thought that I would like to work more with getting more access of healthy foods to not only my members, but some of my community members as well. So.
Is your Y the one that is right on the number?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't mistake. Thank you.
Yeah.
Segue, please.
Awesome, thanks.
My name is Maggie. This is my son Maxwell.
How you, Max?
Troublemaker. I was in the early childhood session earlier, but I guess obviously it's an interest of mine, but then I'm very interested in food security in my neighborhood. I'm just a resident, not just, I am a resident on Rutland, and then also a public health student, so I feel like this space has been really nice, thinking about how I can share what I've learned in school with my neighbors. And then in my community, as a Baha'i, we've had a lot of activities for youth and families, so I've connected to a lot of families and become really familiar with, questions about what we feed our children, what are we feeding youth, concerns about obesity that mothers share with me, so.
And Maggie, how did your former group that you met with, can you announce that group that you were with and how food intersected with it?
Yeah, so I was in early childhood, and we identified like 4 or 5 large areas, and one was food. People are very conscious of how diverse the Renberg community is. There's like 60 languages or 80 languages or something. And so children are like refusing food at school and going hungry because it's not familiar to them. That's what some of the individuals are saying. So we're thinking about how do we have like a cultural exchange of food, because food is so important in every culture, and it's something that people also love to share with others, but not always accept from other cultures. Like, oh, that's pretty weird, but eat my food, but I'm not sure if I want to eat your food. So we're just thinking about some ideas for how the cafeterias and daycare centers can provide more culturally responsive food options that are healthy to children.
Thank you.
Was there anybody from AISD in your group? Okay, because we identified them as somebody who should be at the table, but they're...
There were like 2 or 3.
Okay.
So we should steal them.
Great.
And is there any burning desire that someone thought, I wish I would have said that in part 1? We can start there. didn't think there would be, but
It's
Susan.
just that the AISD, you know, the food service staff is really pretty responsive and they're trying really, really hard. And they've seen a drop in kids eating school lunches and they're trying to understand what that's about. So I bet that they would love to hear from you directly, or from someone, to kind of get that feedback. And they need help from all of us in the community to increase the participation in school lunches. They're at about half.
So we have a critical bridge between our group and then that group that's meeting in this one particular area, knowing that there's statistics. Okay.
Yeah, basically the food service director for AISD came up with some numbers and said that, you know, if a child, because so many of the meals are subsidized versus if children whose meals are not subsidized, if you actually give your child money to go buy food at the school, that money then goes back into AISD's bank, and the food service director can buy more healthy and local food with that. Something like she put out some statistics, like if every child who started eating at school lunches twice a week, I could afford organic milk for the entire district. Or if you ate 3 times a week, paying for the full price, then I can afford grass-fed beef for the entire district. So a lot of it is also kind of that equity piece about people who do have the funds having their kids buy food at the school district. So.
Yeah, that seems like an opportunity for a community-wide social media campaign. Pretty low-hanging fruit.
It makes a good sound. So, all right, we will. Sorry, did anybody else have anything to share? No? All right. Then we'll just do a little recap for those who weren't there, and so that we can reset and get on the same page. So generally, what we went, so just to restate the purpose again for those of you who weren't here, the purpose of this meeting is to understand the Runberg and St. John's areas, to align efforts of the assets that we have in all sectors, and build accountability, whatever that looks like. And so we've also been entertaining the questions of how did what exists now come about, and who was involved. We had some specific examples of groups that were working, projects that they're working on, and how they're working together. And what we are proud of as organizations in projects that have been successful, and examples of those. Can anybody think of any high points? Would you like to chime in? All right. So now what we're moving into is how can some of these programs be expanded? How can we work together to expand programs? What are the gaps? We did talk some about that, but then to address the gaps. So I'm going to go over what questions we still have to answer. And if you need to put Post-its underneath the posters that we've put there, we will definitely find another piece of paper and gather, collect all that information. So don't feel shy when the white space runs out. But what you can continue to answer while we're sitting here together is, are there projects, that center column with the center posters, are there projects that have funders? If so, what's the timeline on that project funding, and in what zip code, particularly to this Runberg, St. John's area, are they addressing? And whether or not they're restricted, and or whether or not they're citywide, but there is an initiative or a portion of that going on in 78753, 78758, et cetera. And then continue to think about, maybe you'll think about disruptive or positive trends as we go along, and you can put those up there. We'll have someone read these off in a minute. Also, what the community, so the questions that we've answered, you can continue to come up with what is a community food system to you, and then how can this conversation apply to your current programs. You can also keep the notes and the Post-its with you, and then put them up whenever you're ready. So is there a volunteer who would like to read what we currently have on what is a community food system to you? And we can take turns too. If you just want to read 3, you can pass it off and ask for someone to take over.
I'll go so I can be re-energized.
Thank you.
Okay, what is a community food system to you? Somebody said, my child grows up seeing all parts of food system. That is agriculture, production, store / purchasing, table / meals. Somebody wrote a food pantry access on the north side. Info places. Info places. Who wrote that? I don't know what that is. Info places.
Information.
Just places where you can
Places
get
where you can go.
Got it. Local farms are viable businesses. A system where healthy food options are widely accessible, frequently discussed, and consistently consumed by people regardless of socioeconomic status. The community food system helps families a lot. Autonomous. Autonomous. I don't know if that is good. Culturally appropriate foods, access to healthy foods, collaboration between all in the community, enough farmland and enough trained farmers to meet local demand, fresh, healthy food, easily accessible to all, a system where the majority of the system production processing. System where the majority of the system production processing.
There's 3 together. Like they're
Thank you. A system where the majority of the system production, processing, distribution, selling, consuming waste reflects the values the community holds and is created / shaped by community buy-in and leadership. Sustainable. That's a community food system that is sustainable. Food system that provides food to everyone from garden to consumption. Economic opportunities for farmers to grow food, steward the environment, and make a living. Private businesses buying and supplying locally grown food, one thriving. The production, distribution, purchasing, and consumption of food are supporting all the people's health and economic well-being, example, farmers and families. One where all people have access to healthy local food, access to healthy food and education, and other resources to address barriers and transportation. One where the public is educated to improve the quality of food choices. A resilient local food economy that provides farmers with livable incomes, values the resources needed to farm, and ensures organic food access, which is the vision of FarmShare. Opportunities for food accessibility. Affordable, easy to access, delicious local food available to all who desire it.
Awesome, thank you. Does anyone have anything that they were thinking about that didn't get to write up there and would like to share, or any responses to what we read? I guess I'd like to see, just like, I feel like some of this conversation is maybe using different words to think in a different way. And I know Regina shared before she left is, she didn't think that social determinants of health should be called social determinants. She likes better calling them political determinants of health, which identifies that there's opportunity to change them, whether that's voting, whether that's the fact that they are so highly influenced from people that we elect and policies that go through and that kind of thing. And maybe if there's any kind of like paradigm ideas, like simple shifts like this that you feel in language are needed before we can have a conversation about a healthy food system. If you want to offer that up, I would encourage you to use this time so that when we get to our goals, we will have the right language and maybe a more empowered language if you feel that that's a valid way to move.
Joanna, are all of these Post-its going to be kind of synthesized into a group vision?
Yes. Okay. Great. Do you you have an idea about what you would like?
No, but I hear recurring themes. So,
Like what?
Oh, I'd have to get up there and read them off again.
Please.
So I heard themes of inclusiveness, healthy access, easy access, just economic access, but also geographical access, I guess. There were a couple in education.
Autonomy is just sustainability, but also like ones.
Yes, yes.
May I offer something? I think breaking down the barriers also. So what I mean by that is we hear political, social, what Regina said, political determinants of health, which says that it's the political system that determines our health, right? But what about the historical infrastructure that we have in place? What about systems that have already been created, such as government agencies, what have you? What about clinical systems that have been created and they can't leave the walls of the clinic because that's what we have been doing in the past and it's been working, so why are we going to change it? And I think that's what we're sort of here to talk about, is how do we reinvent the way things are done? How do we challenge the status quo? How do we address the 80% that is not being addressed at the doctor's office? And I think we're just going to have to think completely different than the way that we're thinking about things now.
Well, so from what I also hear from this language that we're using is these ideas that it's telling us, but no one wrote down that institution has been a disruption to access to a lot of the things that we're talking about. And I think Elliot, as a participant last time, brought that up. Like, how relevant are the systems? Sorry, Elliot, what I'm talking about. But for those of you who also have that, why is it maybe, can anyone speak to the fact about why that didn't go, even though we're talking about it, it's still a disruption to the process, and why no one chose to put it up there as a disruption? Is it because?
I was confused by the word positive.
Positive/disruptive.
Right.
So we should have maybe said it more.
So like, so something would go up there would be like, make a new food system. Like the existing food systems work perfectly well for the people it was intended to work for.
Or they don't work well together, or the institution.
Yes. Make a new one.
Yes, all of that. All of that. So that is also just to redefine the one poster that doesn't seem to have anything on it, and usually, what's that?
Oh, absolutely. I have just a couple quick things on language, and I don't want to insult anybody because you may already know this. I was wrong this like 2 years ago to stop using the term food desert, and the way that I was counseled about it was really because it ends up being disrespectful to communities where people grow food and share food, and that happens so often in communities across the country, across the world really, that just because a community doesn't have a grocery store doesn't mean it doesn't have food.
Right.
And so that's just something I learned a couple years ago. And the other thing, which may or may not be relevant, is I heard someone speak this summer, and she said, let's stop calling them factory farms when we talk about CAFOs and confined animal operations. But really what they are is animal factories. So that's just a different language that maybe reflects more accurately what they really are, that they're not really farms.
Is there an alternative for food deserts to denote a place that needs better access?
I mean, there's no grocery store.
I don't know how big
there's no grocery store, then why don't we just say there's no grocery store?
I thought food swamps was when there's a lot of fast food,
that's
like low
often-
quality type.
What is intended often when I hear the term food desert is that it's in a grocery store. But it takes, not to give it but there's always food somewhere. It's very rare that there's no food anywhere. The desert is no concentration of but there's a spectrum therein too. So I've heard food insecure areas. When you want to talk about places that don't have direct and steady access.
What about maybe saying healthy food, insecure, healthy food, access to healthy food? I mean,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
But I mean, by the same token, if there's a lot of backyard gardens that people share with their neighbors,
right.
then It's just important to include them in the food system too.
Precisely, which is part of why we chose to write a community food system, because it seems to be a rather neutral what's there.
Like what's happening in New Orleans, Costa Mesa, is people can't afford to stay there. A lot of people who live there can't afford to stay there. And they're growing lettuce and greens in their backyard and selling them to the area restaurants to supplement their.
And that's rarely captured, but I heard a desire for it as another theme, that people wanted to see the whole food system in Austin, you know, from beginning to end. And backyard gardens can be part of that, but they're not inventoried as far as I know.
Right.
I think on that note, I mean, I feel like the idea of the whole food system came up quite a bit as a theme.
Yeah.
And also the inclusion of that production piece.
Perhaps you could say that's a positive trend, is like there has been an increase in community gardening in the Rundberg area. Like at Lanier, there are community gardens. They have very long wait lists from apartment residents who are students at Lanier to use. And then there's also community garden at YMCA. And there's a lot of the recent immigrants who were my neighbors when I was in another apartment complex. A lot of Arab, Afghan, Nepali, Burmese, like they're all farmers, like in their own country, but they don't have the space to do it. So how can we provide this space for them? And so anyway, so that maybe is one idea, but the trend I see is there are a lot of small grocery stores. Like there's the Pakistani grocery store, there's the Indian grocery store where they are selling where they are selling fruits and vegetables, and they're even getting the seeds like from their home countries.
Oh, neat. So that we do see entrepreneurship, and we discussed that in the first part. So there are active initiatives, small grocery stores as part of that area of development.
And it's mentioned up there, and MRC, Multicultural Refugee Coalition, has now started a whole program called Community Agriculture, where people, they're refugees, and they either have farming background or maybe they don't have a farming background, but they're actually learning how to be commercial farmers. And they have contacts with IKEA and a few other companies where they're actually growing product for the supply chain in terms of whether it's a food product or it may, like for IKEA, they grow, I think hibiscus? No, something else with a dye that goes into the cloth. Yeah. I don't remember. Anyways, but they're like, MRC is very focused now on creating entrepreneurship, and using agriculture is one of those ways.
So is that, we don't know the name, okay?
That's
Relief.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, just it's super cool because I've noticed that too about a lot of folks come here with this agriculture knowledge, but then how do they actually put that into practice, and then to take that even feeding their own family and creating livelihood, I think is super positive.
Well, and you know, the city of Austin is working on finding public land that could maybe be used as a community garden or an urban farm. And maybe there's a crosstab that the City of Austin Community Garden Coordinator might be willing to look at with the Rundberg area to find city lots that could be used for some people to start, not necessarily a community garden, but maybe one lot gets divided between 4 mini farmers or something. They might be willing to talk about that.
One note from the new Leaf Community Garden is Wadaka is a really good friend of his family's neighbor. Is like their provision, like they're providing also workforce development. Like he was a high school student at Lanier. He like helped manage the Lanier garden. They saw his capacity and have been like supporting his training to be like a farm manager at New Leaf. But then also like it's a farm where the people that are employed, they're receiving like they're not just taking the food home for their family, they're receiving a wage. It's like part of their livelihood now. So I wonder if, like how, I guess, food production cannot just be like something on the side that people have to do on the weekends and the evenings, but also it can be like their livelihood, I guess.
Can I ask something about the process for the GABA process? And I don't know if you guys can speak to this, or maybe Carmen will speak to this, I don't know. But what is the process for potentially designing programs or filling gaps, gathering people like us and institutions, organizations like us to address community needs from the grassroots level up? So I know that that's what GABA has been known for, is that it's a grassroots driven efforts. But what is the process for involving communities to ask them directly, hey, so we understand that there's these issues and you guys are living. Okay, so how do you see it? What would work for you? Instead of us sitting here talking about what would work for them, they're the ones who need to tell us what would work for them. So what is the process for doing that?
Well, so this is the first step on, let's call it a journey in that way. In a perfect world, this room would be mixed, and there would be folks with technical institutional knowledge, and there would be people with lived knowledge about what it is to live in Rundberg St. John's and eat. Life is tough and complicated to get those things to happen. We are also new to this space, geographically. So we're hoping that what I envision these posters doing is setting the frame of a discussion from the institutional and hopefully with a grounding in what it is to live in Rundberg. There will be many more conversations with resident leaders and other organizations that we have connections with or will have them with soon. All towards us getting to this meeting, I think it's set in January with funders, to be able to translate all of it. These might give us particular ideas about trends that we know folks who want to try and solve issues are seeing, but if that's not confirmed in the community in these meetings that we're going to have in between them, then we should be thinking about it a little bit more strategically or differently. So we don't have those meetings scheduled yet, but this is a first step to get from a systems level what is here and where are the gaps as we see it, and then later, like this is something we're hearing. What's your experience? Neighborhood action team, or Restore Rundberg community gathering, or apartment managers were mentioned earlier. I think that's a really interesting connection.
So we do a lot of public involvement, and we, as a public agency, we need to design. Our goal, it's not always perfect, but our goal is to design services according to community needs and real community needs, and the way that community would respond to those services. So we do a lot of community involvement and going, and you're right, they're not able to come to these conversations. So we usually go where they are. We interview patients sitting in the lobby or the waiting areas, what have you. It's very involved, and it is very strenuous and time consuming. I mean, that's her job. And I'm just curious about the process, and of course, we're here, so we're vested in this effort ourselves. So to the extent that we can help, just let me know also.
Yeah, thank you. I know that that's, again, we are new, and we have a full awareness of what that means. So there's a good period of listening to be done from GABA's perspective. So those of you that have been working and certainly living and breathing in these communities are going to educate us for however this information gets churned out into future conversation. In no way is this meant to be like a sponging information from everybody and then running with it. So thank you for the
Absolutely.
Can I follow up on that? So I think something that I mentioned earlier that our organization is trying to work on a little bit is that you may think not social determinants of health, political determinants of health. So I think with the healthcare system, especially FQHCs, federally qualified health clinics, thinking about that currently. There is no mechanism for community organizations who offer programs that keep people out of the clinic or help mitigate their symptoms in the clinic, for the clinic to connect them with that greater community. And so like, that's what I'm working with Peoples on a little bit here, and I think like, that's what's hard, and is that, you know, you have the clinic here and they're like, okay, we can only affect 10 to 20% of your health outcomes. It would be great if you could have access to literacy classes or driver's training, or you know how to cook, or like all of these things. But if we look at the clinic, they still don't have the mechanism in place yet to connect all of those resources.
And that's kind of the point that I was making earlier about community health workers, just being the mechanism that empower communities, not just through helping guide people through the clinical system, but also through health education and a variety of classes, even health literacy classes and things like that. You're right, I couldn't agree with you more. There is that gap. Right now, there's that gap of there's a clinical setting and here's everything else, which is another point I was making earlier. Like, we need to rethink that. There's so many barriers that we need to break down to be able to have these conversations in a way that will be actionable and impactful. So.
And again, what Peoples is doing is they're trying to create this screening tool. And there's various tools, so they're trying to figure out, like, okay, does somebody have food insecurity? Is somebody suffering from, they don't have enough money to pay their rent or pay their bills or that sort of thing, so they can connect them. Versus if all health clinics were thinking in that sort of realm, think about the organizations that offer these types of preventative and mitigating services, and again, how much healthier of a community you would have. So
I'd like us to stop and think about, one, the language that created this. Is this partly that we have written policies so that funding is in fact, it looks like it should only go to certain health-related things and it's not going other places? And who is it that we think, do we need a greater number of social workers? Is it, in fact, you know, those community health workers who will be teaching? Do we just need a lot more of everyone? And if so, who's the a lot more of everyone coming from? So to think of, again, is it the idea that certain money is allotted for certain strict pathways to strict ideas of health? Or do we feel like, oh, people are getting around that as long as this tool exists and you can say 100% of our people need literacy services, and then there's funding from somewhere. So I guess to throw out that conversation and to have anyone respond, or maybe Joy, if you want to be the first person to respond.
I mean, that's like, in my opinion, that's a super hefty question, because we have a healthcare system that's based on pharmaceutical money and based on clinical outcomes. And how we teach our medical students is, you know, Christine, you hurt yourself, let me put a Band-Aid, let me give you medicine. I don't care the fact that you've been homeless or the fact that you don't know how to read, or maybe you have PTSD or something like that. So I guess what I'm, and maybe this is too much for this conversation, I feel like it's a whole flip. It's not about just getting more community health workers out there. Yes, that's helpful, but I think it's the clinic rethinking itself about what role it plays in the community, which again, I feel like People's Community Clinic is starting to understand that by embracing this community health centered home model. And what if all F2HCs were embracing that?
Oh man, yeah.
So.
Well, this is a valid conversation. If what we decide today is we really need to draft a statement of saying, yeah, the institutions, the way that the language goes, the way that it either solicits funding or generates funding, like part of the problem is language and the fact that we're all talking about being whole communities, but our systems aren't set up, and that we're not demanding better language that demands funding.
And I think the funding would follow. There has to be evidence-based to show that funding that kind of system in the end would save money for the healthcare system. Like, I hate to put it that flatly, but if the healthcare system is not going to save money, they're not going to invest in cooking classes or in gardening classes or connecting people with affordable housing options. But if there was something designed to show that by investing in a community health model, we're actually saving taxpayers central health money, or we're saving, Seton money by doing it this way, that's where I feel like the system would turn on its head.
So it sounds like you're saying that we need to set up, again, once we have the proof, the funding will follow. Is that what you're saying?
Right, evaluation. So one more thing that I want to point out. At Central Health, we added strategic priority for the next couple of years to fund social determinants of health programs or partner with people who are already implementing those. However, because there's not that reassurance proven method, then our board is not really going to go approve a whole bunch of projects that are not going to be tied to health outcomes, which leads us back to where we started. And it's really frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's almost an impossible task.
Right.
You're talking about longitudinal studies that demonstrate that food without pesticides have a positive health outcome.
But they can be done. And so I was hoping that there would be part of this afternoon session set aside to figuring out if what we all do together makes a difference in the lives of the people that we're hoping to improve their lives. To figure out the evaluation plan and whether or not we've turned the curve in the community. And maybe even to figure out, if we're all aiming at the same target. Because I see a vision for what we'd like the food system to look like, but are we all trying to affect the same outcome? And if not, then can we kind of find areas of overlap among our priority outcomes so that we can work together? Because if we have a target and we know where it's been and we know where we want it to be, then we can figure out what's the most effective way to get there.
Well, and I think actually Andrew and I had somewhat of this conversation about a slightly different topic, but I think probably we'd all agree that what we want to see changed are, in some ways, it's immeasurable. Like, it's not possible to measure some of the things that we're actually after. And that's okay. If we can take a step back and say, what are the preconditions? What are the prerequisites for that larger goal to be reached? So in this example, and this is, I'm sorry, in this particular situation where we're looking to create a system, right, that has actually a more systemic point of view, like sort of acknowledges itself as a system instead of siloing everybody in their little isolationist bubbles. I don't know how we can really measure that specifically. I don't know that we can ever get there. But maybe we could talk about a number of connections or a number of collaborations or amount of funding that is cross-disciplinary. That maybe that's something that we can start to have that conversation, because that can be measured. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's a good framework to decide.
There could be pilot projects that we're just going to measure and see.
Yeah. And you need that. You need to be able to do that in order, just for your own benefit, to know what works and what doesn't, and to get the next round of funding, right? You need to be able to have that path from what you think is going to work to doing it, to seeing what happens, to circling back to what you think is going to work. Right?
Yeah, and I think we have to be allowed by funders to fail out loud. Fail out loud. Because a lot of this, we can say, we'll do a decade-long scientific study of this or that, and it won't be biased, but it will be, and it'll be conclusive within this narrow range of factors that don't happen to not apply, let's say, in Runberg, and so then 10 years have passed, and the food system is still unchanged.
Can I see a show of hands to those who think that funding and the way that the rules are written for some funding, I know that this is true for a lot of places I've worked in, a lot of nonprofits, but maybe here, maybe not here, the funding has been a reason why silos have existed, or that silos are funded in certain ways, or if that's been kind of any impediment to any of your current programming in this area. Can you raise your hand high? That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, can I just give a super quick example? I won't use any names, but there's a local foundation that's very large that's interested in providing fresh vegetables to kids in school. And Texas Center for Local Food works on economic development of local food, farms, businesses, creating a market for locally grown food. So the foundation is interested in funding more vegetables in K through 5, let's say, but they're agnostic about where those vegetables come from. And I wasn't able to convince them in a short amount of time of the fact that if we can create local jobs in local food, then we're going to create more jobs here. We're going to keep more of our money in our local community. If we create jobs in our rural areas around our cities, we have fewer commutes. That means less stress. You know, and so on some level, by saying, well, it's all right if we bring vegetables into Central Texas from California, Mexico, and China, you know, to what extent is that contributing to the problem? So that's just an example that I'm just trying to sort out.
Thank you. That makes me, I was just chewing on something as well. At the risk of giving whatever comes to our minds when we say funders the power, I want to try and reframe funding, because it's interesting that some comments on what a community food system is autonomy of some sort. And like the market exists, people buy things, and people make money off selling things, and food is something that everybody does. So funding can also be, you make money on your own. And in this discussion, it's an interesting shift to think, what is a funding stream for food in that way? Healthy fast food came up as a chance, or as an opportunity maybe, and whatever opportunities like that might be an interesting addition to this discussion.
Right, and if schools get, I don't know, $5 million to purchase vegetables, and none of those come from Central Texas, then to what extent is that helping our Central Texas food system? This piece of consumption and maybe improve health. Just a question.
Can we go around and just say, if you had to pick one goal, what was your goal for coming here today, or rather after having this conversation and realizing that in fact we're coming to common goals, what that common goal would be for you today? That you would say, I would be on the same page, or I feel like we'll all be on the same page. Let's just share the number one goal. Maybe I didn't clearly, did anybody understand what I just said?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks, I'm glad it came out okay. Would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a postdoc, and I'm not with the organization per se. I'm a value reader. Well, mostly interventionists. We do a lot of our own grants, clinical trials, but also looking more lifestyle changes. I was interested in really learning more about the different programs here. I'm from here. I'm from the east side. My mom's in St. John's now, but it's really kind of, I really want to get a handle on what's going on right now, because I'm not seeing it necessarily. At my mom's house, and she's retired, she's by herself. Taking care of my son right now, but I don't think she knows anything about any of these topics that are going on. We know about mental health, we know about different things, but as far as food system changes. So the main goal was really to see how I can help anyone, because I do have the institutional knowledge, and I'm with ET, and we have some money, and we can get more money. That's my personal goal. But as far as the food system goal, I think really understanding and making things accessible to people. I don't know, as far as my family, I don't know if they would go out and create like for example. It sounds great, but really what's accessible to these communities. Certain things may not be accessible to them because of their working 3 or 4 jobs, or they are disabled, like my mother. She can't go out and things like that. So what is accessible to people in the community? Realistically.
Thank you.
Well, I came really to listen and learn and see what the Texas Center for Local Food could do. You know, back just after the earth cooled, I was a school bus driver while I was in college and drove in Dove Springs and up in Rumburg, St. John's. It was just called St. John's then. I got special ed, so I got to know a lot of families, and so I just have this personal interest as I've seen those neighborhoods change over the decades. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Came to learn more about the overall project and to see how it fits in with the community health assessment, community health implementation plan. And
my main goal was getting clarity on, I think, GABA's next steps as an organization that works very closely with GABA.
So I think in the shorter term, I just wanted to understand how my group, my fellow grant evaluators can integrate more closely in the Rumburg area, but more holistically to make connections both with all of you, but also in my own head about how you can connect grassroots needs and really having a good connection with all this work in the middle, and then the policy. I kind of see it as like that sort of higher level, and just how that all hangs together. So
For me, I guess how we can all work together to make change, and also really, and I appreciate you being here, Roy, to really understand, and those others of you that live in the neighborhood or experience that, we can have ideas of our own, but if we're not living there and living it every day and seeing it, then we may be doing everything wrong. So you guys' voice of those that are in the neighborhood are really important, that we listen to them and find out what the needs are.
My main goal was to figure out how my team, which is Community Engagement and Outreach at the City of Austin, can do a better job connecting with the communities on those particular areas. So I came to learn and to understand what are some of the challenges, and if we have some kind of knowledge of something at the city, whether it's a service or a grant or perhaps an initiative, that I can make those connections.
My goal originally was just to learn about all the work that's being done, or the process of the work that's going to be done, to find opportunities for us to plug in. And so I want to continue that, because Rumburg is one of our priority areas at Central Health. But then after hearing, or after being here through the day, I like what you said, Joy, about People's Community Clinic being a community-centered health home, and I love what I had an opportunity to talk to Regina about all of that earlier today, because that's part of my interest. I want to follow up with her, and I want to find ways to influence the clinical system to follow those steps as well, in any way that I can.
Well, I really came here today to learn more about the St. John and the Rumburg communities in order to best meet your food access needs. As Farm Share, we're expanding into that neighborhood, and with our mobile markets, we had one last year in that neighborhood. This fall, we're going to have 3. So really how we can best connect to get the word out about the market, so you all know that we are there as a resource for food access in the community.
Okay, my purpose was basically to gain new resources from the diverse groups of people who are here, and to kind of see the overall direction of where Rumburg is going. I'm pretty new to the area and new to my agency, and I just want to see, just want to learn about GABA and how it fits into where Rumburg is going from this point on.
Oh, I came here with no expectations at all.
But if you do have a goal, Roy, what would your goal be?
Well, I just really to share with you guys, the other side of the life. That's all. Just to let you know that there's a lot of us out there that are lost, trying to be found, and in order to do that, we have to know about all these organizations. you know, so we can get in society and try to live a different life. So I'm just kind of glad to get this information from you guys and see how you're working it.
What about you here? I guess I now sort of have two goals. One was just I have been working in social services in Austin for a while, but I'm new to working in this area at the St. John's Community Center specifically. So just kind of learning about what's going on in the area is really helpful to me. But again, the other thing is I'm also pretty familiar with free food distributions and kind of what's going on with giving out food and food pantries and that space, but I'm really interested to hear kind of more about like some of the ideas you mentioned about, you know, the food economy and building jobs and what's going on with, you know, just kind of all the other pieces of the system of bringing grocery stores into areas where there aren't grocery stores and thinking of innovative ideas that are a little bit more systemic to help people that with food insecurity besides just food distribution. So.
My goal for coming here was to figure out how we could work together to reduce rates of childhood and adult obesity and rates of chronic disease in Lundberg by using the food system to do that.
So mine was like a lot of y'all, just to learn about the community specifically, learn about the programs that y'all offer and what's being done in those communities already, and just how WIC could be plugged in and how we could help with that.
I think I kind of stated mine, but the YMCA is right there. And so even though I don't live there, I'm there so much that all my families are right from the neighborhood. So for me, and the YMCA's mission is always to be healthy, mind, spirit, and body, right? So one, we have the facility that we rent out space to other nonprofits to do various meetings. So I wanted to come and make sure you guys knew that that's an opportunity that we could collaborate. Two, I want to have more healthy, accessible food for my families. My branch is called an outreach branch, and so I have a negative budget, and it's important for me to serve the community like we've said in what they want to be, how they want to be served. It's a different way to do it. It's a different way to think about it. And the YMCA is typically go in there and go, I know what to do, I know what to do, but that's not always what they want to do. So, and we have a community garden, so we have a lot of things that we can provide, but we aren't the experts in this. So my position is I want to meet new people. I'm already working with Farm Share, and we're super excited about that. Having a food market at the Y, and just what more can I do for my members in my community. And we talked a lot when I talked to community, not Integral Health, I can't remember who it was, Peoples. And they talked about making our neighborhood where it's a place you can go get healthy food, where families feel safe to walk. And so I think that we could all be doing more for that. And so that's why I came here today.
And for those of you who don't have programs represented on the chart yet, you haven't written the projects with funders and zip codes, please feel free to continue to do that as we talk. All right, thank you for sharing those goals. So is there anything now, just to consider the idea of leadership? It seems to me that we're talking about there being a lot of leadership in place, and then we're just finding how to work together. But is there any missing link to leadership? Are we feeling like, well, it needs to be organization? Because it sounds like we haven't talked a lot about how communities are organizing. And Maggie was telling me about people who have small businesses and they don't always have a place to go. We talked about the incubator earlier. Maybe you want to expound on that and how to get people. He's apparently telling us a lot about that. To talk about that, because we are talking about how to generate funds, how this to be an alternative, sustainable system, and that requires money. Would anybody like to address that, or might you have thoughts?
I guess when I came into the food side, just as as a neighbor there. I mean, I see a lot of people who are selling food to make money for their families out of their homes. You know, their kids are knocking my door doing you know, and so I see the capacity for people to start initiatives to sell food, but then there are groups bringing in outside food to give to residents who are hungry. And so I just wonder how these connections can be made so that those that want to be involved in like food production can be economic, and I don't know, there's a lot of economic opportunities for people of the community to be like making food and selling it, growing food and selling it. And I'd also love to see, this is my like personal selfish hope, you know, is that like more of the dusty space outside my apartment can have gardens in it. I'm not personally a gardener, but I would love for my neighbors to feel like they were allowed to garden in their apartment land. So I wonder what the connection between apartment management and maybe like community garden people can be, so that residents that want to like have those opportunities. So yeah, I just wanted to learn, I guess, about maybe what people were doing, and then see if there was a possibility for certain like little policy shifts that could allow these sort of businesses or that sort of growing to occur.
Just a quick reminder, everybody in the country's phone is emergency alert from the president. So if you look on your phones, it should be everybody in the country, first time ever. Just happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
We are talking.
More privacy.
I love the idea of talking about food as a possible economic development opportunity. And in my travels outside United States, it's very common to eat at a little corner, you know, somebody's doing something in a little kitchen, or maybe buying fruits and vegetables on somebody's garage on the back of their house. And I've seen it in countries that are very sophisticated, and then countries that are socialist countries, and it really provides for a family and provides for the neighborhood. And I think it's a great idea. What I think we're missing is the fact that it is so difficult to make that dream happen in this community. And the reason for it is because we have codes, and those codes need to be respected. We have neighborhood plans, and they need to be respected. Then we also have Health and Human Services directive that needs to be respected. And as we are thinking this idea, we need to be mindful of the rules that we as a community have created, and how these rules have been overlapping on top of each other, creating that dream, quite frankly, very challenging. I couldn't imagine somebody selling hot dogs outside of their home. My child at one point was selling lemonade, and we needed a food permit for selling lemonade on Lemonade Day, where everybody was selling lemonade outside. And so I don't have a solution other than we need to be involved on city civic engagement processes, which is what I do for a living, and I work for the city of Austin. And what I tell people, if you're not happy with something and if you have a dream about something, then get involved and tell the story. Because as we are talking about men, that will be amazing. The fact of the matter is that in Austin, it will be quite challenging for someone on Montopolis open a little store on the garage and sell some of the fruits and vegetables they have. And I don't have a solution for that other than get involved, voice your opinion, and hopefully we can change it and make it a little bit easier. The other piece I want to share, as all my chiefs are coming and saying hello, which was my first job, was with the fire department, is that when we look at safety, typically we look at safety from a narrow perspective, which in this case, fire is here to basically, in case of an emergency situation, they come and help us, right? God knows they're there within 10 minutes or less. I think it's 6 minutes is their goal. But fire, for example, and I'm going to talk about fire because it's the one that I'm more familiar, those have a very social mission. It's just that we're not seeing it that way. And one thing that they do is canvassing, and they go in neighborhoods and they go door by door, and they basically check for, the fire, smoke alarm, and give some education. So they do have a mechanism and the infrastructure to actually visit home by home, and perhaps all of us as a community could create little packets of information that fire could actually deliver to everybody's home. And that might be something that doesn't cost us that much, and they're doing it already. And if we kind of amplify that mission of what they do, I'm pretty sure they'll be happy to do so. So just trying to think, reverse engineer our ideas and trying to figure out what the barriers are created.
So I guess kind of going back and reinforcing that the way we define food, health, or that could be integral with the fire department is also for providing a service when they're not sitting here because they're in the meetings.
They're sitting at the safety, I think, is what they're having there, when in reality, if we unpack what they do, and maybe if we unpack what we all do, then we find different channels to actually create the change. But also, my other message was that we as a community have created a lot of difficult, challenging situations that is not allowing us to do what we want to do, which is creating, maybe having food at a very close proximity of your home. And we know now that you have all these permits and processes before you can actually sell a tomato.
So I just heard a disruptive trend.
What?
I just heard a disruptive trend, which is code specifically.
Well, it's code, health. There's a lot of requirements. I don't know who else is from the city here at this, but you're with health?
Yes, in the health department.
In the health department.
And we do cooking classes, so we have to get all the food permits and all that for.
Yeah, for me, on a very narrow and small scale, if I want to hire a small company to provide a lunch like we did today, it requires a great deal of paperwork when I will have loved to eat something from Nepal, for example, or maybe pho or something like that. And then we have to go to the restaurants that have all sorts of permits and history, and then we register with the city. It's very complicated to do the work that we want to do because we have so many rules and regulations that, of course, they have a reason for being there, but at the same time, how regulated we are that now we can really think creatively because there's all these boxes and these narrow passes to be able to achieve our goal. So, I guess my message is please get involved and voice your opinion on everything that we do at the city. So hopefully we can make it easier for everybody else to do what they like to do.
I also heard that in codifying processes, we then assign fees to processes that then continually become prohibitive to people to access.
Yeah. If you want to change a door, which I didn't know, you need to get a permit, and that permit costs you money. Change a door in your house.
And some slightly positive news, there's probably going to be another bill at the state this spring about changing the cottage food laws. And cottage food basically means food that you prepare in your house. Right now it's very narrowly defined, and they're looking to amplify what can be considered more cottage food so that if somebody was making food in their house and then selling it as a business, those regulations would be a little looser.
A little. It still won't ever include meat or tomatoes. Because they're hazardous. They're so hazardous.
They're what?
Botulism.
Easy disease, easy transfer.
They won't. They'll never go there.
I'm very ignorant about that stuff, but I cook every day and I use tomatoes all the
No,
time.
it's more like
I was like, what?
if you put tomatoes in a jar, the process you have to go through because it could become food unsafe. You can't do that in your own kitchen. You would have to do that at a certified commercial kitchen
If you're going to sell it to someone.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, like for those entrepreneurs, like for somebody, if somebody had a fantastic kimchi recipe that they made at home and wanted to sell, they can't do that at home right now. They would have to go to a commercial kitchen, they would have to have a food business certification, they would have to pay to use that commercial kitchen again, and so that entrepreneurship, which I think about Runberg area and all the different cultures there and people that have these food traditions, and it's pretty exciting to think about that. But I'm with you. And running farmers markets, the health department is very keen on coming down.
When I think what we're doing in Elbert, we're really trying to maybe be able to facilitate an inspected commercial kitchen that's in our community that people can make food and then legally go out and sell it from there. And then we're designing it with replication in mind for this kind of very thing.
And I think, I don't want to discount food safety. Obviously, none of us want to get sick. I think it's just sometimes when, like many other systems that have been created in this country, if you're a smaller business, if you're a one-person show, getting your stuff to the level that codes were written for huge operations and to have those same things can be very onerous and difficult, and especially when we're looking at structural racism and things like that, it can be real difficult to overcome.
Well, we did a seminar in Lockhart just the other day on cottage foods, what you legally can make at home and sell. And we could maybe look at getting funding for that, to do that in the Runberg area. And a couple times a year on a regular basis. It's like a 3-hour seminar on how to use Texas cottage food law to legally make food in your home that you can then sell.
It seems like an important tool as well if these people are going to be filing their own taxes probably and setting up their own businesses, then to have that entire assistance available for infrastructure from the rooter to the tutor of the business model, because when mom and pop shops are going to be doing it all themselves. Anyway, just a note to that.
Yeah, maybe code who can come and talk about the rules and help them, because I don't know the rules, I just know they're very hard to navigate.
We have about 3 more minutes to share, and then I'm going to have us take a bathroom break. Would anybody like to share in the next 2 minutes on this topic? And or we can continue to talk. But I wanted to let everyone who has to go to the bathroom know we're going to have a break. Does anyone feel like this is a partnership that's relevant to their organization? I mean, Sue for sure, but who feels like that in particular is related to something that they can offer from their institution? That's aligned, being able.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, between the lines, do you have a kitchen that's certified on your facility? Because that's an option. Where people may not, in their own business, be able to start a business. That might be an avenue to support this kind of change.
In the Runberg area?
It's not in Runberg, it's in that way.
Okay.
Does the YMCA doesn't have a kitchen?
We don't have a full functioning kitchen now. But if we have meeting space, so like if there's trainings that you don't need necessarily a kitchen for, we have 2 huge rooms that we
What's your capacity in those meeting rooms?
Each of them, I have a divided wall, so 50. And so we fit about a little over 100 and when I pull the wall back.
There's also Yard to Market Co-op. There, it is a resource that provides a way for
Usually don't
backyard
charge
gardeners to join a cooperative and then sell at the farm.
A lot of our WIC cooking classes, we don't have commercial kitchens or full kitchens, and we just have like a little cooking stand demo. We do have to pull the food permits, but and then we just get little bins to make the, to do the wash, rinse, and sanitize. So we don't, at our WIC cooking classes, none of them have a kitchen except for one that's co-located at the Southeast Health and Wellness Center.
Does anybody work with anyone who does something with outdoor ovens or outdoor cooking, like barbecuing style? I'm just thinking of alternatives that maybe already fit into what somebody's doing.
I know some people do it. We're gonna, like, when we build the outdoor food center, we're gonna put a pit in the back, outdoors. So people can do it in a special space and sell it.
WIC is supposed to be getting some vans for some mobile units in December. So that's always a possibility, is maybe, taking those mobile units to the Runberg area and doing like community classes that could be outside for sure. We could still get a permit for those.
So they're mobile kitchens.
I don't know if we don't know exactly what the vans are going to be yet, but there may be some components like that, possibly.
We can bring kitchens. I mean,
Yeah,
we
we
set
can
up
always-
a teaching kitchen in a space, but it wouldn't really be suitable for teaching like production cooking for a business. It's more
demo.
No, it's hands-on. It's all experiential. So there's a station for each individual so that they can get their hands dirty. But it's cooking for your kitchen, for your own home. It's not cooking for food to sell.
So then I guess, bringing back in the conversation businesses who aren't sitting here and their desire to participate in some way, shape, or form on days that they're closed or on, I don't know if anybody's broached that conversation yet, but.
I just wanted to revisit the healthy food economy idea because that's really it's novel. I've never heard of anyone talk about reframing funding that way, and it seems like something a neighborhood could get behind. If you don't have a healthy food economy, then an unhealthy food economy takes over your neighborhood. I've seen it many places, and next to all the fast food restaurants, eventually the dialysis center springs up to take care of the people who got sick because they ate too much fast food. And so what if a neighborhood said, not for us, and we're going to make money doing it? That would be amazing. That would be so different.
Any last thoughts before we close this round and take a short break?
I don't know whether this falls into food. It kind of came up in early education. But if you're talking to like the young people, like the high schoolers, about the challenges in the neighborhood, a lot of them talk about alcoholism and how it's affecting their families and their safety of their community. So I don't know whether that fits into like how food or intervention. Alcohol is like an awkward thing to talk about, but like it really impacts our family and the safety of the community that we're in, and especially like the kids' relationships with their fathers. So I don't know, it's something maybe we can just like think about how that plays into what we do with food and consumption overall and our health. Maybe
And what we
it's
don't
something
do,
we
like,
can just think about, like how we might somehow appropriately like think about it.
Elliot, can you remind, well, that just tied back to, you guys are addressing social determinants with the 4 or 5 pillars that Karen mentioned earlier, right? Because what I thought about was mental/behavioral health, substance abuse, and interventions around that are already in place. So that's a whole other conversation. But GABA is strictly, directly wanting to impact stuff.
I mean, it's all, at a point, this is all shaded gray.
Right.
They're all so intertwined. I think it's just easier to have conversations focused directions. This conversation will inform the physical activity discussion, which will inform early childhood. And as we do all of these from each of the sessions, we'll be looking at political determinants or socio-political determinants.
Because I think behavior is also part of the 80%, right? 80% that's funded back to the doctor's office. Sexual behavior and behavior around substance abuse.
Yeah, there's a Mr. Rogers quote that I really like, where he asks, how do you make goodness attractive? And I think that's that spirit of, certainly behind this, but all of it, like behavior change, unless somebody's interested in doing it, of course, all research shows they're not going to do it, even if you give them every single opportunity to do it. When we're thinking about these issues, we're aware that it has to be something that's desirable as well.
So if we have to sacrifice a tomato being grown 2 miles away to get a vegetable on menu, then we have a discussion about that and aware that it's an incremental change. Am I confusing things further?
All right, well, we will take a short break. Be back in 8 minutes.
No, you're good. Please spread out and fly.
¿Cómo se llama? Bird? ¿Cómo se llama? You have to download the app. What's it called? Bird and what's the other? Blind.
I'm also very interested with the lumber movement, how many that looks like to me.
I'm sorry, that's what I was thinking.
And are we missing a subset?
Uber driver. I can't let you drive myself.
And then maybe not her, but Stephanie could hire someone from Mercedes.
No. Anyway, I have to be honest with you. I like getting stuff done, and I understand these conversations are very comfortable in getting stuff done. But I'm just like, okay, when are we gonna get to do it? You know, and but I mean, so and I get that.
Yes, part of the risk. We see it rushing to it.
Yeah, no, I get that. But I understand my nature is to, you know, okay, so I want to create a logic model, okay, and how are we doing that? Who's doing what? Let's get to it.
Like going in my grasp on those things, where my dream is change. Get started now. For the 5 pieces. But there's wisdom in
But yes, sure.
So they say.
We're gonna go ahead. Me neither. That's fine. We do it. You just download the app. Ale, I just downloaded mine. Really? No, that you asked me to enter myself.
Great. That's great. I love that chair.
I can't ride with you? Did you?
I don't think that's allowed.
I don't wanna. I'm sorry, I'm about to pass. I have to download the app. And then
I just downloaded it. So did Marion. We just downloaded it.
I got one. I'm trying to get the other one. I can't find Bird.
I actually really can't. Because I have to download it.
I'm getting my bio on the remote. I don't have a lot. I just downloaded one, but I need to get the Bird.
Yeah, for my neighbor.
I know I look viejita, but I'm not that viejita.
Maybe for real.
I
I'm gonna circle speed or I'll do
So what's the guy's name upstairs? Who's bouncing stuff around all the time?
I think you already started.
Yeah, it's 205. 203. Yeah, see, you know, okay. You've been in this apartment, right?
I'm not his case manager.
No, I'm just saying this furniture and stuff. You seen what it looks like? There was 2 chairs that was out by the dumpster. You know, he likes to move stuff. And I thought there was people who was dropping off. I grabbed it. Maybe in this apartment. See, if it is a nice chair, I need to you know, if it's not, I'll just keep it. It was by the dumpster. I think so. Yeah, because it's with the other little pink thing.
That's it.
That's it. The girl in the guy lives upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he just takes things off the porch or something. He put it over here, put it over here. And I thought about that when I grabbed that chair. And I said, wow. I asked him if he didn't want to say that. But I'm pretty sure it's his. You know, because it looks like a very good antique chair.
And I did also the language. So I'm very
You know, the little silver ball we had in the yard? He busted that. That's gone. Yeah. That's amazing. They put that alert out on everybody's phone.
I got it a while back. It didn't just come out because I got it
earlier. Yeah. Well, that means they got access to everybody's personal information, just to let you know. That's really what it means. That's why they already got lawsuits up against it. You know, president. Everything that's going on in there has been law. There's a big facility in Utah. I remember when they first started building it back in 1978. And it holds all information, everything. It has to do with the internet. That's probably why Snowden was arrested. He exposed it. The government been doing it for years. They've already completed putting up the towers, ping towers. They were
Trying to use the warm water, but it's very powerful.
All this was before President Clinton put the internet.
Oh my God.
And we were researching the development. All the components that go with it. They're working on the market.
Yeah, I was about to say,
1977, 1989.
when the cell phones come out.
They were introduced in 69.
I remember my mother had one of the first ones. It was huge.
Very huge, big old kit. It worked off the analogs.
Yeah.
Now everything's digital. And what they did was the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electricity, IBEW. That's all this do is and also the truck drivers. And that union sold out. Now all the Japanese.
No, don't cover it. Then all my enjoyment is lost.
Country in 1979. Those factories were closed and moved overseas. That's why an American in this country can even make a lighter that doesn't cost our consumption. Everything that we have factories in this country, moved overseas, Mexico, Taiwan, Pakistan, Mexico. All closed for us. China makes all their clothes. But all that stuff was done in America. Especially the sweat camps in New York, delivering the workers. But all that stuff was in the It's a pair of tennis shoes, less than $30. $300 in this country. Was it Singapore? See, that's where this factory is. Kathleen Gifford.
Yeah, she's,
She had the factory.
It's just not correct.
She kind of feels guilty about her. Yeah, so when you hear during the job in the industry, the person can work 20, 30 years and retire. Doesn't work like that anymore. Used to. Yeah. Just imagine what it's going to be like in 2040, 2050. Hope I'll be gone by then.
But do you have to have like? Was there a traffic?
You're right, it could have been customized, it could have been in general. I realized that there's mindful commercial control. I think we lost at least 3 people. So actually, pull that down.
So if you don't mind coming first.
Okay, is that okay? Sure. What you have to do is definitely. Sorry about that. No worries. We're going to try to actually get through this a little bit, come identify goals, so that way we don't lose everyone before we get to the common. I love it.
I want to try one, but I think I want to break the wrist.
It's been so much fun watching people in those scooters. Like, they go fast, some of them.
Do they?
Yes, have you tried it?
Well, I know from Yvonne said, because he works for Central Health,
Yeah.
the emergency room has seen
An
plenty of their
increase,
clients.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I saw them a lot at a lot of the breweries and stuff. People are taking them from one spot to the other, but I'm sure it's hard to balance on those.
Yeah, drink a little bit, they get on the.
I know. I saw them a lot by the breweries. I was like, I don't think that's a good combination.
I think they shut off at a certain part, time of day.
Oh, do they?
I think that first there's some accidents on Congress and now they shut off after like 9 or something or 8.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of smart.
All right, I know I'm kind of feeling the midday. I'm a napper. I'm a cat at heart, which means I really wish I could be taking a nap around now. So we're going to do one more activity. Again, we're just going to kind of learn in the process and do the same activity that we did before, but with different questions and with fewer of us here. So if you don't mind standing up and maybe even like reaching up and opening up your side and getting all the good blood flowing, doing whatever your favorite movement is. If you're a cat too, arching your back, shaking your feet out. You could do the polka just right in this place if you want. All right, so our first one, we're gonna assign the same 3 kind of sectors. That sector, this sector, and by the windows. Summer, spring, or fall? Summer, spring, or fall?
You're not in the middle this time?
Oh, gosh.
Clearly defined.
Summer, spring, or fall for what?
It's the end of the road.
Generally, do you like, what do you enjoy as a season?
Oh,
And you can be in the middle, you can say, I love
Mine's not here.
seasons. All right.
I'm winter.
All right.
I like snow.
Any particular reason?
Yeah, I'm a cold climate person.
Okay, so you just like the cold.
Yeah.
You're just lost there.
What about someone over here? Any reason why you like that area?
Spring, it's when you can start to grow things.
Wait,
It's the end of the cold.
wait, where's
Summer, spring, and fall.
where's summer?
Summer.
Oh, that's why I was so confused.
Yeah, I didn't.
was like,
Oh,
wait.
right. That's why I thought I was like
Winter.
winter.
Yeah, you didn't say winter, so.
I didn't
I'm
say
close to the fall. I'm close to the fall.
Like, that's not an option. Nobody
Yeah,
can
we
like
only
winter.
gave 3. I guess winter would be right here. Isn't that a big Anybody from here want to say why they like the fall?
It's the coolest in the fall, and it's not, well, I've had allergies, so spring's not a good time of the year for me.
I feel like football season weather is like the jam.
Yeah, in
That's
October,
why.
Halloween.
Football season. I have a lot of good memories. So I grew up here, and I have a lot of good memories of playing outdoors as a kid in the fall, when it was like the summer was ending, and you know, and you could run around outside, and it was kind of chilly, and the leaves were turning or falling.
So I grew up in Iowa, and see the leaves clear off the trees.
Nice. All right, next one.
Kicked in.
Scooter, foot, or car? Scooter, foot, walking, or car?
Or
Yeah.
bicycles.
You can scooters or I don't know, bikes in the middle. Because I always bike in the middle.
I don't drive at all.
Okay. Well, we're very distinct on that one. Ooh, all right. Of course, we're talking about the healthy options only. Cake, pie, or cookies.
Oh, all of them.
Oh, no.
I gotta be in the middle because I gotta go.
None or all is the middle, right? Both extremes.
Wow. You know, it's your
I'm only cooking meat? Wow. Okay. So, okay, somebody from cake.
Oh wait, this is pies.
No, that's cake, pies, and cookies. I do love the pies, but my number 1 is a cookie. Anybody, all right? Cakes? Cake story? I'm with cookies. Cake story? Other than the obvious birthday?
I
mean,
just
so-
like icing, good.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Anybody from the pies?
Sweet potato pie, family, just warmness, yeah.
John, what's your pie filling?
It's American apple pie.
Apple pie, okay. What about you then?
Am I in cookies? Is
Yeah.
this the cookies?
We are cookies. We are
Cookies. And there's just 2 of us. Well, finger food, I like to eat with my hands. And chocolate chips.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, hike, run, or walk? Hike, run, or walk?
This is like a trail running.
This is in between and or all the gray areas. Anybody want to tell a hiking story?
I just love to go with my dogs and my boyfriend. It's family time, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Community. Anybody want to tell a run story?
Just better runner. I was never good at sports that included coordination and balls and stuff, so running was kind of the thing I could just do, so it's just, by default, that's what I fell into it.
Everywhere I go, I always make it a point to run in that city, so when I travel, just because you can see a different perspective and it's a little faster.
And the last group, anybody want to share your walk story?
Actually, I should be in the hiking area, but I like to walk. I've hiked 3 major mountains.
Wow.
Mount Massif, Mount Elbert, and Pikes Peak.
Cool. All right.
Of course, I'm a Colorado native.
Okay. And now, which you might not drink this stuff, but black tea, herbal tea, or let's just say coffee. For those people who prefer coffee to tea, let's call this one coffee. Black tea, herbal tea. Kind of like here. I like them all.
South American and North American.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, okay.
Green tea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of
Yeah,
depends.
it's more than
All right, Elliot, you're the only one there, so you have to tell
Because I
us.
wish I was a black tea drinker, and I'm really a coffee drinker, but I want to.
You want to be British?
I'm imposter syndrome.
It uses so much less water globally.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
tea.
know.
Yeah. You're
That's
doing
true.
your part.
This is a good food point to make now that we're learning about other aspects of that production. And then the byproduct after we excrete it into the system and its effects on water, the caffeine, coffee. But anyway.
Hyperactive.
But anyway.
Speaking of caffeine.
Speaking of caffeine, and do you have a green tea story?
Green tea. I just love green tea.
Okay.
Just taste it, yes.
You guys, somebody from your sector?
Herbal tea is relaxing.
It is. If I want something hot, it's gonna be tea. I can't stand coffee. I don't understand the whole coffee thing. So anything hot, yeah, it's herbal tea.
Okay. You guys? Coffee? Gotta have it? It's the good stuff? Okay.
There's a ritual about it. I remember as a kid, my parents drinking coffee and saying like, oh, they had to have their coffee, and like I never understood it, right, as a kid. But now, like as an adult, there's just something like ritualistic about drinking my coffee in the morning and getting ready. I think it's even more like, I don't know.
Comforting.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about that ritual.
The smell, the
Yeah.
feel, the sound.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean,
That's
some of the
perfect.
finest words are, "Good morning, honey, your coffee's ready."
Well, Jake does that a lot.
Julie did it this morning. I mean, made my day.
Well, thank you guys for playing this game.
I bet he does it a lot. Yeah, he's
coffee almost every morning.
I'm so happy. I just like, I want my eyes to get better, and then I'm just like, but I get to hang out with Jacob.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. But now back to, as Elliot said, strategic planning. All right, so we have a lot of good information. We've had conversations about who's here, about resources, assets we can offer, some about funding and programming, gaps. If there's anything that you thought of while we were breaking, or that you remember right now about gaps that you would like to acknowledge, highlight, but if there's nothing else that you would like to add about what we've covered, then we can move forward and start to name some group goals and identify areas that we can work on together. If we could all just take one deep belly breath. All right. I figured that was enough time to generate any of those last thoughts. Okay, so this is the last phase. This is the last part. GABA, Elliot let you know that, and maybe even Carmen, that a pool of funders, the whole point of this is to get money.
Available organizations to give the information out, but it's not central.
Okay.
You know, there's not one place where not just homeless, but anybody in the community can go to and say, hey, do you know where I can do this? Or do you know if I can do that? Without having to go all the way downtown to get that information. Okay? That information, you can go downtown, you can get information on anything, United Way, anything. You know, Trinity Church has all the information. You know, the Arch, the Austin Research Center has all the information on all you guys' organizations. There should be something like that in each neighborhood.
So where would, like, if you were looking for that in your area, what kind of place would you go?
The only place I know is, like I said, you know, the center. I mean, Caritas has got a place up north. They just opened a resource center, you know, and then the major one downtown. And that's a huge resource center. Even though a lot of people don't use it, the ones that are downtown, but it should be open for anybody in Austin. But if there was something like that in each community, like the St. John's area, the Rumberg area, the East area, you know, what is that, Colony Park, Windsor Park, you know, all those little areas should have, they have libraries, okay? But how those people know that they can go to the library and get information on, oh, I can go to the pantry on Wednesdays to this place across town, or I can go here on Tuesdays, you know what I'm saying, instead of...
Did you ever hear about My Library Keeps Me Healthy? Because I had a program in that area doing that thing. And so we had a marketing campaign and all of that, but it only had 1 year full-time funding.
Right.
And so the question is then what do you do? And the program, the online tool existed, but our staffing outside of Austin Freenet stopped. Did you ever experience it?
I was just saying there's got to be a mechanism to where people can go and say, hey, this is in your area. I mean, I think there's places in the area, but nobody knows about it. I just don't think the information's out to the communities. You know, there are those of us who are active, we know about it, maybe, but people who are not active, just the average neighbor, you know, because neighbors don't talk to each other no more. Okay? It used to be a time when you knew it, everybody was blocked. You know, that's non-existent
Specifically, a
anymore.
librarian and a programmer.
Exactly.
And I think this also speaks to the whole place where the essential area, but then also what Marion said, and using resources at the same time to take that central information and go person to person. So it's like that rope thread, two sides of the same coin. Elliot?
Well, I was just told I was given this sense, which is universal.
All right. Weird time. Does anybody feel comfortable talking about this? Would you like to share? I feel like I should be doing it because I Neither. Those of you who...
Did I just get voluntold?
I mean, can I voluntold you?
You can do anything. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, you're the moderator.
Unless Joy's really...
You took the best notes, though.
Yeah?
You haven't seen these.
Oh, then why aren't you doing it?
Because I'm too close to it.
Well, would you like to read my...
Sure.
Because really, I guess it's that we've identified these areas that it seems like there's momentum and resources and passion.
No, thank you all so much for taking it out.
Thank you so much.
I think we're all coming back together.
And please, if you have any feedback about my facilitation, about your experience, please don't forget to give that feedback. Thank you.